Chapter 1057. Condense the prototype of a great world. Humph, I won't let any of you escape. Chen Hao, who seemed to be crazy, was extremely angry and heartbroken when he learned that Pan Long, Chen Ling, Li Yang, Du Jing, and even Chen Shui were in big trouble. However, he was mentally prepared and had tempered his will. His heart was as clear as a mirror, and there was no sign of him falling into a state of madness. This was obviously because his tolerance for advancement had increased a lot. However, Chen Hao did not realize that in the vast thousand worlds of chaos, he had used his Tao voice to influence all living beings and preached about cherishing life. At this moment, he had killed people without batting an eyelid. He did not feel guilty at all. Previously, he had killed thousands of people from the 9 foreign race legions without even a frown on his face. Reverse scale. Several of his brothers, sisters, and women had fallen. After being bullied to this extent, it would be difficult to vent the hatred in his heart if he didn't kill them all. Righteousness. When the 9 major galaxies joined forces to kill the human cultivators of the vast universe galaxy, did they ever think about the meaning of life? What he wanted to do was to fight evil with evil, to kill for kill. Who cared if you were good at evil? Who cared if you had a loved one? Who cared if your cultivation was easy? Kill them all. You want to cut off the possibility of the human cultivators of the vast universe galaxy becoming Hongmeng Supreme in the 10-direction territory? Then I will kill you all. I won't be promoted for 100 years, 1,000 years, or even 10,000 years. I will dominate this place and destroy the future of the 9 major galaxies. A drop of water will be repaid with a gushing spring. The hatred of a small grievance will be returned 1,000 times. Especially the culprit. Chen Hao's anger rose in his heart. Although the information he received was limited, Chen Hao knew that the 9 major galaxies joining forces to deal with the vast universe galaxy was not as simple as it seemed. It was definitely not an agreement reached after entering the 10-direction territory. This was definitely a conspiracy that had been planned in the outside world. Who was the leader? Xiao Ranru. In just a few words, it was enough to show that the strongest of the 9 major commanders of the 9 major galaxies was the tyrant's golden dragon. At this moment, he was in seclusion to condense the prototype of a great world. How could Chen Hao, who had exposed himself, give him too much time? Chen Hao believed that once he really went on a killing spree, his strength would definitely scare off some people. Tyrant's leader, Golden Dragon. Then, once the prototype of the macro world was formed, it would directly trigger the divine punishment. Once it was too far away, Chen Hao might not be able to sense it. Once it opened the Star River Tunnel and left the 10-direction territory, it would be too difficult for Chen Hao to kill it again. To do that, one would have to cross the star system and enter the other party's domain. By then, Chen Hao wouldn't be facing Daoyuo Jingxian, but countless Hongmeng Supremes, Dao-severing perfected immortals, and the masters of other galaxies. Buzz buzz buzz. Buzz 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 buzz. Suddenly, Chen Hao, who was going deeper at a terrifying speed, felt a slight fluctuation between his eyebrows. Immediately, this fluctuation seemed to be increasing in strength, constantly shaking the world in his mind. What happened? Chen Hao frowned slightly. He could clearly sense that this fluctuation came from the space that he had sealed and completely isolated himself from the outside world. He had completely given that space to his second life. It was also the life that Chen Hao valued the most. That space held the faith of all the members of Proud Heaven, as well as the deepest feelings of his brothers and sisters and women. Chen Hao didn't dare to accept all of this, fearing that he would truly fall into bedevilment. Therefore, he used it all on his second life. Tempering him was also tempering himself. Once he merged with the second life, his will, soul, and the realm of the 7 emotions and 6 pleasures would definitely rise by a large margin. It might even transform and make a qualitative leap. But at this time, why would there be fluctuations from hitting the barrier? It shouldn't be growing so fast, right? Chen Hao was puzzled. The second life was isolated from all his memories, except for the laws of the mystique. Moreover, it had condensed his strongest seal. No matter how much pain he endured, he wouldn't be able to move. He could only face it head-on. This was undoubtedly the cruelest thing. Even if Chen Hao merged with it, he would probably slap himself in the face. How could he be so cruel to himself? According to Chen Hao's estimation, only the second life's consciousness could completely control the world that he had carved out. Only then would he be able to strike the barrier. At the very least, it would take thousands of years, or even tens of thousands of years. After all, the second life couldn't possibly surpass the talent of his true self. Behave yourself. I don't have time to deal with you. Chen Hao sent a powerful strand of divine will into the sealed space. After he finished speaking, he was a bit speechless. Whose father? It was himself. Chen Hao. Chen Hao didn't send out his divine will to investigate, but rather to warn his other self. However, what he hadn't expected was that the strand of divine will he sent into the barrier was actually locked onto by a divine will that seemed weak to him, but was extremely pure. It seemed to contain boundless profundity. Furthermore, the divine will caught that moment of connection and shouted out from the depths of his soul. Little Nurse Lu Hui? Chen Hao stammered. He nearly fell out of the void. How was this possible? How was this possible? He knew that little Nurse Lu Hui had an innate spiritual body. Her cultivation talent was bound to be very strong. That was for sure. He also knew that she had extraordinary special abilities and divine abilities from a young age. But to Chen Hao, it really wasn't that strong. He hadn't paid it any mind. However, at this moment, the shock in Chen Hao's heart was no less than that of an earthling seeing an alien. It was 100 times, 1,000 times more shocking than the fact that his second life's divine will had risen to such a level in such a short period of time. After all, although the cultivation techniques he'd passed down to his biological father and father were ultimate divine abilities, they were all at the lowest level of the human immortal realm. In Chen Hao's opinion, it was enough for the life forms of the Sky River sector to cultivate for thousands of years. But Lu Hui actually had such a powerful divine will. It was too inconceivable. She didn't even have a cultivation technique. There weren't any ruins or legacies left behind in his mind. Little Hui. Oh yeah, it's me. It's me. Do you hear me? That's great. I haven't been able to control the entire space yet. I'm just experimenting. Chen Hao, you're so ruthless. Why are you so ruthless to yourself? When you fuse, it'll be very, very painful. You can't even handle the other one. I'm worried to death. I'm comforting him every day. You can't be, right? How do you know all this? I don't know. After I came here, I naturally understood. Also, I seem to understand some of the Taoist scriptures and Buddhist scriptures you chanted. Also, every time I increase my cultivation realm, many divine abilities will appear. They should belong to me originally, and they've awakened. Chen Hao, you can't be so ruthless. I'm comforting you every day. If I don't comfort you, when the time comes, even if you fuse, you'll probably fall into the demonic path. So, can you stop restricting my divine will? Just treat it as my reward. If you don't agree, I'll hit you every day. I won't comfort you anymore. I've already become the holy mother of 6 children. I even help you take care of your sons. 5th update. Can you give me a monthly ticket? Chapter 1058. Nurse Lu Hui's words stunned Chen Hao and gave him a headache. Inherited memories, bloodline awakening. What else could it be other than this? The one with a headache was the holy mother of the 6 children. Of course, the 6 children weren't Nurse Lu Hui's, but rather the 6 special nurses who had given birth to Chen Hao's second life. Because he had deliberately created his second life to be independent, Chen Hao's original body didn't feel much about it. However, sooner or later, they would have to merge. No matter what, he had already become a father for some inexplicable reason, although he felt a little happy about it. However, he still hadn't fulfilled any of his duties as a father. Chen Hao, can you hear what she's saying? Lu Hui shouted again. Boom, boom, boom. All right, but don't use your divine sense to probe. What's about to happen will definitely be very bloody and violent. It's not suitable for children. Baba. You're the child. You're more interesting like this. Don't worry, I won't affect you. Nurse Lu said with some excitement. In the independent space of the mental world, Nurse Lu's pretty face was slightly red, with a hint of excitement. After she had awakened her memories, she understood Chen Hao's special state very well. Whether it was Chen Hao's second life or Chen Hao's original body, in her heart, they were all the same person. However, hearing the words of Chen Hao's original body still made her happy. This was a little more interesting. That's good. If the other me's divine sense grows to the point where it can connect to the entire space, let me know. No problem. Then that's that. After Chen Hao finished speaking, he locked onto Lu Hui's divine sense and opened a channel that allowed her to sense the outside world. I'm afraid it's not as simple as a reincarnated innate spirit body. This nurse isn't simple. After withdrawing his divine sense, Chen Hao thought to himself. Her cultivation speed was not enough to make Chen Hao sigh. After all, she even understood some of the Taoist and Buddhist scriptures that Chen Hao recited. If Lu Hui was immortal and said that she understood a little, Chen Hao would not find it strange at all. She only understood the literal meaning. However, Lu Hui was already a cultivator at the heavenly immortal stage. If she said that she understood, it meant that she had comprehended part of the profoundness within. This was undoubtedly astonishing. Die. Boom. Ah. Just as Chen Hao was madly advancing and sighing, a group of foreign race cultivators appeared in front of him. Without any hesitation, Chen Hao's long hair fluttered in the wind, his Taoist robe expanded, and his fist, which was like a falling star, smashed most of the foreign race cultivators into smithereens. The leader was obviously a cultivator who came to see how strong Chen Hao, the god of killing, was. He was so scared that he screamed and ran away. However, Chen Hao did not chase after him. Before he crushed the culprit into smithereens, he could not reveal his strongest strength. He was afraid that he would scare them away. He could move unhindered in the Hongmeng domain of the vast thousand worlds of chaos. Although the Shifang domain was vast and obviously stronger than the Hongmeng domain, the cultivators in the Shifang domain were inferior to the cultivators in the Hongmeng domain. Chen Hao was not being arrogant. He really could not think of anyone who could stop him. When strength and combat strength were raised to a certain level, it was not something that could be solved by numbers alone. He could trample thousands of ants to death with one foot. If there were too many of them, he could leave with a lift of his foot. Wasn't it up to the strong to decide whether to kill or stay? The provocative troops who thought they were strong kept appearing. However, Chen Hao only used a simple and violent punch to knock them back. They were just weaklings who could not withstand a single blow. However, as time went by, Chen Hao frowned slightly. What's going on? Could it be that the strength I displayed was too strong? Chen Hao thought that he had controlled the situation well. Although he was terrifyingly strong, it was only for ordinary cultivators. Those who were slightly stronger could escape. Chen Hao was not very clear about the strength of the leaders of the 9 galaxies, but he thought that they should be able to do it, and they should be stronger than him. According to this situation, there should be more powerful troops coming. However, in less than half a day, no one stopped him from moving forward. His journey was smooth. Only his strong soul perception could catch the aura of cultivators who were peeping from afar but did not dare to come close. They were also moving toward the depths of the Shifang domain. Is he letting them go? After thinking for a short while, Chen Hao thought of a possibility. That's even better. Chen Hao's eyes became colder. He's so strong. Killing God Chen Hao is back. He's obviously mad with anger. Yes, you don't know. When killing God Chen Hao was in the primitive secret realm, he was like this once he started killing. He was cold and ruthless. No matter how many he killed, he would not even frown. Now, he's Daluo Jinxian. He's much more terrifying than before. So what? He's strong indeed. However, he could dominate the primitive secret realm, but he can't dominate the Shifang domain now. That's for sure. Not to mention the Tyrant Clan's golden dragon, who is said to be a monster that only appears once in a trillion years. Even Lu Qianri and our commander can easily kill him. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Why? Do you doubt the strength of the commanders? That's not it. It's just that over 10,000 years ago, Death God Chen Hao triggered the true form of the golden scale dragon transformation. Under the final heavenly tribulation, he was annihilated along with the 10th fate of the number 1 family in the vast universe galaxy. He must have been brought into the depths of the chaotic space by the heavenly tribulation of the golden scale dragon transformation that connected the 9 heavens and 10 earths. It is already a miracle that he was able to survive, but to return as a golden immortal is even more inconceivable. He's so lucky. I don't think he'll be killed so easily. That's true. Let's wait and see. He's so lucky. How can he beat the golden dragon from the tyrants? He was born 5,000 years ago and became the number 1 Grand Luo in the tyrants. To be precise, he's the number 1 Grand Luo in the chaotic universe. His strength is unfathomable, and even the 8 great commanders are obedient to him. All the cultivators in the Shifang domain gathered in the depths of the Shifang domain because of the appearance of the killing god Shen Hao and the orders of the 8 commanders. Countless people were talking about the killing god Shen Hao, whose name shook the chaotic universe more than 10,000 years ago. No one knew that a figure that had merged with everything in the world was approaching Shen Hao, the god of slaughter, who had shaken the entire 10 square territory at his fastest speed, like an imperceptible breeze. No one knew that she, who blended into the world, was crying in her heart. Surprise, grievance, and other emotions almost made it impossible for her to blend into the world. Tears of joy could only flow in her heart because she had lost her beautiful eyes. Where would her tears come from? With the support of the monthly votes, those who do not have the monthly votes, please vote for Dark Mountain. Thank you. Wushan continues to write. Today is still the day. Chapter 1059. Apart from Qin Shui, who else could this figure be? Fortunately, Chen Hao was traveling in a straight line, and it was also fortunate that Chen Hao did not use the greater teleportation technique. Similarly, although Qin Shui, who only had a small physical body left, chose to leave because she did not want to drag everyone down, she did not give up hope. Not only was she inquiring for information, but she was also waiting for an opportunity to sneak into the area where the Great World Mark was born to intercept Chen Hao. Otherwise, Qin Shui would not be able to catch up even if she wanted to. Buzz. Sensing that Chen Hao was getting closer and closer, Qin Shui, who had merged into the world, suddenly jumped out and crazily urged all of her energy aside from suppressing the vicious Dao mark, releasing it without restraint. How? Condensing her voice into a line, Qin Shui let out her sobbing voice that resounded through the world. To Chen Hao, who was moving forward quickly and did not sense any aura, felt his heart skip a beat when Qin Shui's aura suddenly burst forth. His eyes widened abruptly. Integrated into the world, although Chen Hao's realm was higher than Qin Shui's, but this kind of powerful concealment ability, if Chen Hao did not calm down and focus on sensing, he would not be able to catch it. At this time, the moment Qin Shui released her aura, Chen Hao knew who it was. That familiar origin aura, even after more than 10,000 years, would not change. Immediately, hearing Qin Shui's voice that contained all kinds of complex emotions, Chen Hao was so excited that his whole body trembled. Little Shui! A shout full of surprise burst out from Chen Hao's roar. Whoosh, his speed suddenly doubled. No one knew that this was under the condition that Chen Hao did not use the great teleportation technique. Nothing could describe Chen Hao's mood at this moment. Originally, when he learned that everyone had been forced to hide, Chen Hao did not try to find them. Even if Chen Hao believed that he could find them, it would take too long. If he really wanted to hide in the periphery of the vast and boundless 10-direction territory, no matter how strong Chen Hao's sensing ability was, it would take time. The best way was to expose himself and set off a commotion in the entire 10-direction territory. At that time, as long as everyone heard a little news, they would definitely come to meet him. However, that would also take some time. At least, Chen Hao did not expect Qin Shui to get his news so quickly and come to meet him. On his handsome face, Chen Hao, who was filled with dense killing intent just a moment ago, was now filled with intense excitement and pleasant surprise. After more than 10,000 years, he was finally able to see the woman he loved. Even if Chen Hao's state of mind was extremely strong, when he sensed Qin Shui's aura at this moment and heard Qin Shui's cries that were filled with excitement, pleasant surprise, grievance, and sorrow, his eyes started to sparkle. It was as if he saw Chen Shui in a blue dress, with a graceful figure and a beautiful face. His Shui's great teleportation technique was Shui's. The distance of millions of miles was crossed in an instant. His eyes finally saw the woman he loved. But Chen Hao's eyes froze in an instant and then turned red. Chen Hao clenched his teeth in pain. His heart was like being pricked by needles. Monstrous anger and boundless murderous intent spread in his heart. Where was the beautiful figure in the blue dress? Where was the beautiful face? There was only a humanoid figure that was tightly wrapped up and surging with true essence. Others might not be able to see it, but Chen Hao, whose eyes were red, could clearly see the golden light shining in his eyes. The pink skeleton, a real skeleton. From head to toe, except for a small patch of flesh between the eyebrows, all that was left were dark blue bones. Moreover, they were bones that were cracked and on the verge of collapse. How? Take me away. You can't go. You don't know the strength of the other party. Chen Shui's eyes instantly turned red when she saw Chen Hao stop in his tracks. Sparkling and translucent tears flowed down her cheeks. She who was agitated, pleasantly surprised, and filled with grievance instead calmed down even faster. She condensed her voice and tried her best to make herself seem calmer as she spoke. Who is it? Who is it? Tell me, little Shui. Tell me, who is it? Chen Hao roared. At the same time, a dazzling crystal light burst out from between his eyebrows and directly wrapped around Chen Shui. Seal. At the same time, Chen Hao pointed at the void. In an instant, a radius of millions of miles was shrouded in dazzling immortal light and endless runes. The powerful seal directly blocked all the divine senses that wanted to explore this place. Chen Hao pointed one finger at a time. Every finger fused with the crystal light blossoming between his eyebrows to form a mysterious rune that merged into Chen Shui's spiritual altar. How can it be reckless? Chen Shui wanted to stop Chen Hao from wasting his energy, but she exclaimed after saying the word reckless. She could clearly feel that the terrifying Tao marks that were encroaching on her spirit platform like shackles suddenly loosened at this moment. What replaced it was countless even more profound and terrifying runes that completely protected her spirit platform. What was even more shocking was that these runes were crazily expanding outwards with an unstoppable momentum, strangling the evil and malicious Tao marks. 1 breath. 2 breaths. 3 breaths. Boom. In just 3 breaths, Chen Shui felt her spiritual altar shake. Her entire soul palace and head felt extremely comfortable at this moment. She was like a bird that had broken free from its cage and was no longer affected by anything. How? Chen Shui cried. She cried in shock, excitement, and happiness. He was back, he was back. After more than 10,000 years, when she and the members of Proud Heaven were about to collapse and die, he was back. He had never disappointed her, he had always exceeded her expectations. Although she had fallen into despair every time and thought that there would not be a next time, he had always brought about miracles and inconceivable miracles. Other than Hu Meinyang, who had tried it herself, no one knew how much pain she was in after her arm was cut off and she was bound by this terrifying and evil Tao marks that completely surpassed her realm. But when she was in front of everyone, she did not shed a single tear, she did not say any words of despair. She was afraid of implicating everyone, so she resolutely left and only told Hu Meinyang, who was the strongest and the most rational, all the pain. She chose to bear it alone. When she could no longer lead everyone, she chose to leave. She was the core of all the girls, wasn't she? But only she knew how tiring it was to be the core. A woman, no matter how strong a woman was, how strong could she be? She was weak, especially in front of her man, a man who could hold up the sky for her and give her an absolute sense of security. Chi, majestic and pure life force surged out from between Chen Hao's eyebrows and turned into a trickle that poured onto Chen Shui's spiritual altar. Endless laws, majestic immortal light, mysterious runes, and the purest life force in the world, with Chen Shui's spiritual altar as the core, spread out at a terrifying speed. Woo. When a beautiful face gradually formed, Chen Shui did not care about her image and burst into tears. Her beautiful eyes stared at Chen Hao, but her tears were like broken pearls that continuously flowed down. Second update. With tears streaming down my face, I beg for monthly votes, recommendation votes. Dark Mountain continues, please everyone. Chapter 1060. Woo woo woo. Chen Hao's beautiful face was full of tears, and Chen Hao's eyes were red. He was crazily activating his energy and using his divine sense to destroy the evil Taoist marks on the white bones to help his body recover. The little nurse, Lu Hui, who used a wisp of divine sense to sense the situation outside, also watched the two of them crying bitterly. This was much more touching than some stupid TV series. The little nurse couldn't help but be moved. But what Chen Hao didn't know was that although the little nurse was crying, her not powerful but extremely pure divine sense was gradually integrating into the vast and boundless Shifang domain. She wanted to do something for Chen Hao, but she didn't plan to tell Chen Hao for the time being. Because, even though she didn't know what exactly happened, she knew that Chen Hao had been heartbroken all these years. If she hadn't comforted him every day, she really didn't know what would happen. Hatred and anger. What she wanted to see most was to kill all the bad guys and villains who had made her sad and heartbroken with Chen Hao. Otherwise, it would be difficult to relieve the hatred in her heart. So, how could she tell Chen Hao at this time? What if Chen Hao was in a good mood and did something disgusting like what she saw in the movies and TV series? She didn't want to see that. Of course, although she didn't think that Chen Hao would be so disgusting, there would always be a situation where he showed some mercy. She had to keep it a secret. Xiao Shui, don't cry. I'm sorry. Several hours later, Chen Hao gently wiped away the tears on Chen Shui's beautiful face, held the face that he hadn't seen for more than 10,000 years, and said, Little Nan is dead. Ling, Li Yang, and Coiling Dragon's fleshly bodies were destroyed. I don't know what happened to their primordial spirits. Du Jing, he sacrificed himself to the devil and died. Except for a few core members of Proud Heaven, they're all dead. How they're all dead? Countless human cultivators were trampled and killed. They're all dead. How? Chen Shui wanted to be as calm as possible, to not be too sad, and to not appear too fragile because she did not want Chen Hao, who was already red-eyed, to be in too much pain. However, in front of her own man, her own spiritual sustenance, she could no longer suppress the dark experience of more than 1,000 years in the Shifang territory. Her strong appearance was completely shattered. She was naked in front of Chen Hao and threw herself tightly into Chen Hao's arms. With a wah, she burst into tears again. It was as if he wanted to vent the pain of losing his brothers and sisters. Chen Hao used all his strength to hug Chen Shui's trembling body. When had the past Chen Shui ever revealed such a weak side? However, the cruel reality and the cruel experience made her, slowly closing his eyes. Chen Hao's heart was bleeding. He let Chen Shui cry. He did not have any words to comfort her. It was not that he did not want to say anything, but there was nothing that could comfort and heal this kind of psychological trauma. Cry, cry, Chen Hao said in his heart. Perhaps only such indulgence and catharsis could lessen her pain a little. For you, for Little Nan, for Ling, for Li Yang, for Coiling Dragon, for Du Jing, for my brothers and sisters, for our compatriots of the human clan, I, Chen Hao, swear that I'm not a man if I don't massacre the Shifang territory. Boundless pain, boundless anger, and boundless killing intent spread and burned in the depths of Chen Hao's heart. Holding Chen Shui's trembling body tightly, Chen Hao did not look crazy, angry, or murderous. There was only calmness, a terrible calmness. Massacre the Shifang territory. Kill them until not even a blade of grass was left alive. Kill them until they turned the world upside down. Kill them until nothing was left. Even if he had to kill his way into the demonic path. No one could stop Chen Hao's crazy demonic thoughts under his terrifyingly calm appearance. 6 hours, Chen Shui cried loudly for 6 hours. Crying as she fell asleep in Chen Hao's arms. Pain, exhaustion, and more than 1,000 years of darkness. On this day, in the safest and broadest chest in the world, she could not hold on any longer and fell asleep. Her beautiful face was still full of tears. Chen Hao's chest was completely wet with sparkling tears. Be good and have a good sleep. When you wake up, I'll break the sky for you. Chen Hao stared at her beautiful face that had fallen into a deep sleep. Although she had recovered her physical body, her essence, energy, and spirit were weak. He gently wiped away the tears on her face and murmured. He hugged her and kissed her delicate lips and between her eyebrows. Immediately after, a crystal light flashed between her eyebrows. Chen Shui slowly and gently floated into the great world in his mind. She went directly to the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree and was enveloped by endless Tao laws and majestic pure energy. She fell asleep peacefully. The barrier that sealed a radius of millions of kilometers was destroyed by Chen Hao with a wave of his hand. Countless divine senses in the surroundings instantly probed, but Chen Hao seemed to be unaware of it. He suddenly flew up into the air, and there was no longer the madness from before. There was only calmness, but he quickly went deeper. All the probing divine senses noticed the change in Chen Hao, but they did not understand what it meant. They only knew that Chen Hao's most beloved woman, who was also the core of Chen Hao's many women and the leader of his harem, had met him. However, she was nowhere to be found. Based on their understanding of Chen Shui, she must have used her concealment technique. Perhaps she was by Chen Hao's side and had temporarily left. No one knew, however, they were guessing. What's going on? Killing God Chen Hao seems to have calmed down. Shouldn't he be angrier and crazier after seeing his woman in such a state? Why did he calm down instead? I heard that when the golden dragon severely injured Chen Shui, he used a mysterious divine ability that surpassed the zenith heaven realm by countless times. Although Chen Shui escaped, her physical body was destined to collapse. When she appeared before, she was probably on the verge of collapse. The golden dragon said that other than Tao severing perfected immortals, no one could save her physical body. Oh? If that's the case, I might have guessed what's going on. Killing God Chen Hao seems to have completely lost the intention to fight to the death. Perhaps he wants to use him to exchange for Chen Shui's physical body? How is that possible? Do you think killing God Chen Hao is an idiot? Our 9 galaxies joined forces to kill all of them. How can there be an exchange? None of the 9 great commanders would agree. Because they will all die. How can killing God Chen Hao not know this? I guess that after seeing the golden dragon's powerful Tao mark, the possibility of him losing his fighting spirit is higher. Nonsense. Do you really know killing God Chen Hao? Let me tell you, I can confidently say that this is definitely the calm before the storm. Killing God Chen Hao, even if he is not as good as the golden dragon or Lu Qianri who has fully awakened the divine king blood essence, his character will never accept his fate. If you believe me, then hide far away, lest you become an innocent bystander and be implicated. This is a peak battle between the 9 great commanders. We can only watch, and we have to watch from afar. Otherwise, we won't even know how we died. Third update, seeking monthly votes, recommendation votes. Can we kill our way up? Desire. Please, everyone. Dark Mountain, continue writing. Chapter 1061. In the boundless 10-square territory, human cultivators were hiding in some barren mountains where the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was thin. Almost every day they would be found and searched. Countless people died in the process of running for their lives. However, the alien army that had been chasing them these 2 days had left in a hurry, heading to the core area of the 10-direction territory. Many human cultivators who were being chased had received a piece of shocking and exciting news when the alien army left. This news was like a ray of light in the endless night. It quickly spread among the remaining human cultivators at the edge of the territory. The god of slaughter Chen Hao had returned. He had stepped into the 10-direction territory and headed to the core area, which was completely occupied by the alien army. Countless pieces of information were gathered. When they learned that the alien army had ordered to let the god of slaughter go, and that Lu Qian, one of the 9 commanders, would have a one-on-one duel with the god of slaughter Chen Hao, the remaining human cultivators gathered together. More than 1,000 years of running for their lives had not only destroyed their bodies, but also their souls. They were tired. How long could they hold on? The appearance of the god of slaughter Chen Hao, with his absolute prestige in the vast universe galaxy, gave people a ray of hope. It was very faint. The human cultivators who knew how strong the 9 galaxies were when they joined forces and the commanders of the 9 galaxies were. They knew that this ray of hope was very faint, very faint. However, it was the last ray of hope. Because only the god of slaughter, Chen Hao, could truly unite the hearts of the people. In that case, he was their last hope. Go. Gather together and step forward. When the ray of hope was broken, they would bid farewell to this dark life and drag out an ignoble existence. They would fight to the death. They would fight to the death and burn their boats. Only then could this faint ray of hope, the last ray of hope, become a little stronger. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. In the boundless 10-square territory, Chen Hao kept moving forward. There were no more alien races to stop him. He maintained a speed that was fast for most of the cultivators, ordinary for a few, and slow for a few. He was flying in the air. For half a year, there was not the slightest pause. Chen Shui had fallen into a deep slumber under Chen Hao's deliberate manipulation in the great world of his mind. Her body, which had almost been reborn after its destruction, floated quietly under the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree. It was still enveloped by endless mysteries and was constantly fusing into her body. The invisible aura she exuded also became stronger and stronger. No progress at all. It was at this moment that Lan Feng suddenly opened his eyes and gritted his teeth in a cave abode on a barren mountain peak. It's meaningless. Lan Feng abruptly stood up and rushed out of his cave. Lan Feng, what are you trying to do? Whoosh. In an instant, Hu Mainyang stood in front of Lan Feng and said with a frown, "Chi chi chi chi." Soon after, what made Hu Mainyang slightly surprised and worried was that Helian Wuzi, Long Ting, Tentai Lien, Xia Yu, the sisters, Bailey Ning Bing, Chen Yen, and Ao Tian had all rushed out of their respective caves. Moreover, their fighting spirit was rising. What are you trying to do? Hu Mainyang frowned. It's been half a year. I've long since recovered to my peak state, but I haven't made any progress. I can't calm down to cultivate or comprehend anything. Hu Mainyang, I don't want to continue like this. Lan Feng said sternly. It's been half a year, but none of their cultivators have found this place. This is very abnormal. I haven't made any progress either. Mainyang, we can't continue like this. Helian Wuzi's cold face shone with a cold light as she said, I can't stand it anymore. Everyone has recovered to their peak state. Let's go out and kill. We'll just run after killing them. I can't sleep anymore. Long Ting said angrily. You all want to go out? Yes. I wanted to, but you have to know that the more you're in a situation like this, the calmer you have to be, the more you have to cultivate without any distractions. You can't let your emotions affect you. If you can break it, then you'll improve. Hu Mainyang, you're right. Unfortunately, I can't do it. Don't stop me. Let's kill to our heart's content. If we can't kill them, we can escape. When we die, we can earn more. What's the point of waiting for death like this? Lan Feng said, if you don't want to go, you don't have to go. Hu Mainyang's eyes suddenly brightened, causing Lan Feng's voice to weaken. He suddenly felt that he had gone overboard. Hu Mainyang was the Misty Rain House's saintess. Although her relationship with Boss was still unclear, her 1,000 years of experience was obvious to all. Especially when Chen Shui was severely injured, she didn't even frown when she tried to test the law. At this time, Hu Mainyang rolled her eyes at Lan Feng and looked at the others. What about you? Same. We can't sit and wait for death. Kill as many as we can. Tentai Lien said first. The others also nodded. Everyone knew that Hu Mainyang was right, but no one could do it. Even Helian Wuzi, who had awakened rebirth, couldn't do it. Actually, I can't do it either. It's been half a year and I haven't made any progress. Then let's go out together and kill. I thought you've reached the stage where you're untainted by the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Lan Feng said, a little stunned. Then he said, I didn't mean anything just now. Don't mind me. Stop talking nonsense. Let's go. Let's go. Chi 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 chi. After the seal was opened, everyone restrained their breaths and rushed out of the cave. What they didn't expect was that not long after they went out, they received a piece of indescribable news that shocked and excited them. The god of slaughter Chen Hao had returned and stepped into the 10-direction territory. They had thought of Boss countless times, but they never thought that Boss could return and enter the 10-direction territory. They couldn't believe it was true. This was like a shot of cardiac stimulant into everyone's nerves. Not to mention Heli and Wuzi, the girls, Lan Feng and the others, even the cold-blooded, who Mainyang was so excited that her pretty face flushed red. They all crazily increased their speed to the limit and rushed towards the core area of the Shifang territory together. Senior brother. Senior brother. Pa. Senior brother. Pa. You're here. You're here. Pa. Even if I die, I have no regrets. Get the fuck out of here. Bang. In a deserted and hidden cave, there was a sudden burst of excited laughter. A cultivator who was sitting cross-legged laughed crazily and tears came out of his eyes. He had known that Du Jing sacrificed himself to become a demon and killed tens of thousands of alien tribe cultivators by himself. He had known about the news that he and Lin Xia both died, but he didn't risk his life. He was too weak. With only his primordial spirit, he was too weak to cause any consequences. When he heard the news, he had lost interest in life, but he still insisted on living. There were still many brothers and sisters who were holding on. He couldn't help, but he couldn't give up. Chapter 1062. He had taken a huge risk and found an opportunity to forcibly possess a tyrant cultivator's body. He had been tempering himself for a few months, and his strength had increased a little. However, at this moment he suddenly exploded and turned into a cloud of blood mist. The blood mist dissipated, and the shadow of a primordial spirit that was several times larger than an ordinary person's slowly condensed. Although it had lost its physical body and true essence, this primordial spirit still had the aura of an ancient ferocious beast. Back then, when his physical body had been destroyed, he did not want to implicate his brothers and sisters, so he left alone. Just as he was scanning the surroundings with his divine telekinesis, he received news that Chen Hao had returned and stepped into the 10-direction domain. Why would he still want this body? It would affect his speed. He wanted to meet up with Senior Brother as soon as possible. Senior Brother was already fighting his way to the core area. Why would he be afraid of the ball dragging him down? Even if his primordial spirit did not have much power, he wanted to fight side by side with Senior Brother. He could die in peace. Coiling Dragon's primordial spirit suddenly turned into a stream of light and flashed toward the core of the 10-direction domain at a speed several times faster than when he had a physical body. Xiao Hui, what's going on? Why are you consuming energy so fast? Huh? I don't know. I'm cultivating. Is it affecting you? Not really. Just don't drain me dry. You can't use the energy of the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree for the time being, okay? Okay. Chen Hao, who was advancing, sensed the abnormality in the great world in his mind and communicated with the little nurse, Lu Hui. He was even more shocked by the little nurse. The speed at which she absorbed energy was so fast that even the space that he had completely isolated could not satisfy her. She was not any weaker than him, who was a perfected Daluo Jinxian. However, what Chen Hao did not know was that when his divine telekinesis connection with the little nurse was broken, the little nurse stuck out her tongue and made a face. She thought to herself, stingy guy. Refining her body consumes more energy than I use. I've already tried my best to absorb energy from the 10-direction domain. If I use all of yours, I'll really drain you dry. This heaven-defying technique consumes too much energy. My cultivation is too low. I'm so tired. The little nurse wiped the sweat off her face. She looked at the strange shadows made up of extremely small light spots in front of her and smiled. Immediately, her glabella shone again. Her hands were constantly forming extremely mysterious but weak runes that were hidden in her divine telekinesis and merged into the 10-direction. In the blink of an eye, another half a year. Chen Hao sensed that there were more and more cultivators around him, and most of them had already stopped. He knew that they were about to arrive. His calm expression became even more solemn, but his heart was surging violently. Phew! A figure, who was sitting cross-legged in a palace made of divine telekinesis law, suddenly let out a long sigh. The blood-red light around him slowly merged into his body. A strange blood-red rune flashed between his glabella and disappeared. It's finally here, boom. The majestic and terrifying Divine King's bloodline aura suddenly erupted like a mountain and an ocean. It was not intentional at all, but the huge palace suddenly exploded. Lu Qianri, who had the Divine King's body, was like an ancient demon god. He slowly walked out of the raging palace under the horrified gazes of the surrounding god clan experts. With every step he took, the pressure on his body soared. "Greetings, Commander." "Greetings, Divine King." Countless god clan cultivators could not help but kneel on the ground. They were full of fear and worship as they paid their respects. Every cultivator was extremely shocked. Lu Qianri. More than 10,000 years ago, Lu Qianri had fallen in the primitive secret realm. Although the god clan cultivators in the primitive secret realm felt it was a pity, they were not too shocked. However, no one expected that after stepping out of the primitive secret realm, they would learn of Lu Qianri's death. It actually caused an uproar in the entire god clan. The master of the god clan's anger shrouded the entire Divine Dominion star system. At that time, they knew how deep Lu Qianri had hidden. Not only did he awaken the Divine King's bloodline early on, but he also obtained the near-perfect Divine King's body. It was the most perfect Divine King's body in the god clan's history. However, he had fallen and could only become a legend. Fortunately, and what made everyone envious was that Lu Qianri's younger brother, Lu Qianri, had awakened the Divine King's bloodline when he became a sky immortal. This was an extremely rare occurrence. Cultivators, no matter how strong their physique was, would give birth to strong sons. However, just like how a dragon gave birth to 9 sons, each one was different. There was no pattern to how strong they could be and how many bloodline inheritances they could awaken. Otherwise, with the long lifespan of a cultivator, as long as a powerful person had countless children, wouldn't they all be monstrous geniuses? Lu Qianri and Lu Qianri, these two biological brothers, both had the Divine King's body. However, Lu Qianri was judged to not be as perfect as his older brother. Even so, he received the favor of the master of the god clan and was taken in as his last disciple. He was fully nurtured. It did not take long for Lu Qianri to become the #1 Grand Luo of the god clan. However, when people talked about him, they would mention his older brother and sigh at his perfect Divine King's body. That was a legend. No one knew that every time Lu Qianri heard such words, he would feel extremely unhappy. He felt that his dead brother was still stealing his luck. However, he had no way to prove that he was stronger than his older brother. The dead had become a legend. How could he prove it? But now he had a chance. The god of slaughter Chen Hao, who killed his older brother, had now stepped into the 10-direction territory. He was in the same realm as him. As long as he could defeat the god of slaughter Chen Hao, he would be able to prove to everyone that even if his Divine King's body was not as perfect as his dead brother's, his overall talent was still stronger than his older brother's. Sensing the rapidly approaching aura, Lu Qianri's entire body boiled and burned. Tyrant Clan's golden dragon, come out and face your death. Boom. Suddenly, a thunderous voice came from afar. The terrifying pressure and crazy battle intent caused the sky to change color. The space within a radius of hundreds of millions of miles began to tremble. Challenge the golden dragon? You'll have to get past me first. Boom. Lu Qianri's arrogant voice soared into the sky and collided with Chen Hao's voice from afar. Countless cultivators in the surroundings had to gather their energy to protect themselves. Challenge the golden dragon? I'm asking him to come out and face his death with the 8 great commanders. Who do you think you are? I can kill Lu Qianri with a single move. You won't be an exception. Chen Hao's cold and arrogant voice was domineering. Under the gaze of countless cultivators from the foreign tribes, a person soared into the sky with monstrous killing intent. Just this courage alone was enough to earn the respect of all the members of the foreign tribes, let alone the fact that he was challenging the 9 great commanders. What kind of heroic spirit was this? 5th update. Begging for monthly votes. Chapter 1063. Along the way, Chen Hao's powerful soul perception had already told him about the 9 great commanders through the mouths of countless cultivators. Lu Qianri of the god race was the younger brother of Lu Qianye, whom he had killed. How arrogant! Boom, boom. At this moment, even the other 7 leaders who had arrived a long time ago were infuriated by Chen Hao's blatant disdain. Each of them suddenly emitted a violent and terrifying aura as they shouted in a stern voice. Everyone, don't be rash. Just watch how I deal with him. Lu Qianri frowned when he saw that the 8 great commanders were enraged. This was his chance to prove himself. How could he let others interfere? Even if he killed Chen Hao, he wouldn't be able to show his strength. How could he prove to everyone that he was stronger than his brother, who had become a legend? He had lived under Lu Qianye's shadow for so many years. He had long had enough. This was his only chance, and he couldn't let others interfere. You don't know your place. God of Slaughter Chen Hao, do you think this is the primitive mystic realm? My brother is not as good as you, and he died in your hands. Today, I will let you know how powerful I am. God of Slaughter? You're nothing in front of me. I will use your head as a sacrifice to my brother. Lu Qianri took a step forward and rushed towards Chen Hao at lightning speed. Although he said that he wanted to avenge Lu Qianye, it also revealed that he wanted to compete with Lu Qianye. Do you think you're worthy of being my son? Chen Hao's cold voice sounded again. His voice suddenly turned into rolling thunder. Golden Dragon, come out with me and die. This shout was even more terrifying than the previous one. It was like a thunderclap, containing the sound of the great Tao that connected the heavens and the earth. Chen Hao knew very well that Golden Dragon, the commander of the tyrants and the leader of the alliance of the 9 galaxies, was here. He had changed his direction according to the information he had obtained. This was the territory occupied and guarded by the tyrants, and it was also the base of the alliance of the 9 galaxies. Lu Qianri was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Son of a bitch? Who in the world would dare to say such things about him? If that was all, it would have been fine. After all, he was determined to fight Chen Hao to the death. However, Chen Hao's target was the Golden Dragon. He didn't put him in his eyes at all. He looked down on him like a clown. Anger, anger. However, just as Lu Qian's face turned purple, his body trembled, and his battle intent surged. Just as he was about to charge at Chen Hao, boom! Rumble! Chen Hao's voice was like rolling heavenly thunder, but it was like hitting an ox across a mountain. When it passed through them, it was just a deafening sound, but when it reached the depths, each syllable actually caused the mountain peaks and the palaces condensed from the laws of divine abilities to explode, and it continued to go deeper. At this moment, it wasn't just the Xenorace cultivators who were dumbstruck by this scene. Even the 8 commanders and Lu Qianye had turned around with astonishment. It was already shocking that the Tao sound could collapse mountains at such a distance, let alone the palaces condensed by cultivators. Anyone who was qualified to condense a palace here was definitely an expert of the tyrants. However, under Chen Hao's Tao sound, it was as if they were made of paper. How dare you? Who dares to disturb me? As the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked, the Tao sound did not weaken. Instead, it grew stronger and stronger. It was like a hurricane that covered the sky and the sun. Wherever it passed, all life was extinguished. Countless palaces condensed from the laws of divine abilities were directly turned into ashes. Occasionally, shrill screams could be heard. At this moment, a huge palace in the deepest part of the palace suddenly burst out with endless immortal light, and a furious voice gushed out. Rumble! Chen Hao's Tao sound finally disappeared, and at this moment, a figure that was releasing endless divine light and boundless pressure soared into the sky from the intact palace. His bright eyes were like the sun and the moon, and he suddenly looked in the direction of the Tao sound. Everyone realized that these 2 eyes, which were already very bright and breathtaking, suddenly became 1,000 times brighter when they saw Chen Hao coming from afar. The Golden Dragon. This figure was the commander of the tyrants, the Golden Dragon. He was the Golden Dragon who appeared out of nowhere 5,000 years ago and obtained the title of the most powerful Grand Luo in the tyrants. Now, he was known as the most powerful Grand Luo in the chaotic vast thousand domains. What? No one knew how shocked the golden dragon was when he saw Chen Hao. His pupils constricted, and his body, which was surrounded by endless divine light, trembled slightly. His heart was in turmoil. How is this possible? How could he appear here? Impossible, it's absolutely impossible. With a cold and ruthless expression, an extraordinarily handsome face, a slender figure, and long hair that danced wildly in the wind, who else could it be but Chen Hao, the god of massacre? The golden dragon, who was in seclusion to condense the embryonic form of the great world, had blocked all contact with the outside world. He was only awakened and angry when Chen Hao's Dao sound penetrated the palace. No matter who it was, he would crush anyone who dared to disturb his seclusion. However, he did not expect that the aura he locked onto and the figure he saw was actually Chen Hao, the god of massacre. But he could not figure it out. Moreover, the cultivators who were looking at him in shock were silent and did not reveal any information to him. "You're the one who disturbed my seclusion? Tell me your name and accept your death." The golden dragon suppressed the shock in its heart and said arrogantly and condescendingly, "You're the golden dragon?" When Chen Hao saw that the golden dragon had been forced out by his Dao sound, which contained the mysteries of the Buddhist six-syllable mantra, his expression became calm. His gaze seemed to pierce through the void as he stared at the golden dragon from afar. He suddenly stopped moving forward and asked in return. His voice was no longer rumbling like thunder, but calm and tranquil. "That's me. Who are you?" The golden dragon asked again, his eyes becoming even brighter. Even though they were thousands of miles apart, he could sense that the other party's aura was not as simple as it seemed. Could it really be Chen Hao, the god of massacre? He did not believe it. No one knew better than him how the golden dragon's true form had collapsed in the heavenly punishment. "Brother Golden Dragon, he's Chen Hao, the god of massacre who dominated the primitive secret realm more than 10,000 years ago," the Sky Fiend commander could not help but say. To everyone's surprise, the golden dragon stopped him sternly, his gaze still fixed on Chen Hao. "Shut up. I'm asking him." "Chen Hao. Remember my name. You all of you," Chen Hao said calmly. After saying that, he slowly closed his eyes and murmured, "Shaonen Du Jing Lin Xia. Ao Tian's brothers and sisters, my fellow humans. Today, I will use endless blood to pay tribute to your souls. Junior brother Ling, brother Yang, I hope that your Yuan spirits are still intact. I will use endless blood to reforge your bodies." Chen Hao closed his eyes and murmured as if he was praying. His calm voice was no longer calm. It trembled slightly and contained endless heartache. Before he finished speaking, 2 streams of tears flowed from his closed eyes. The god of massacre, Chen Hao, who dominated the primitive secret realm like a merciless god of death who reaped lives, actually shed tears in front of countless foreign race cultivators. Tears of blood. 2 streams of blood tears were a shocking sight. At the same time, a terrifying murderous aura slowly spread out along with his trembling voice. His face, any part of his skin that was exposed, and his long hair that was fluttering in the wind, quickly changed color at this moment. By the time he finished speaking, he had already turned completely blood-red. Silence. Strange silence. Countless foreign race cultivators gathered here, including the 8 commanders and the golden dragon, seemed to be frightened by Chen Hao's emotions at this moment. They even held their breaths. From afar, only a wisp of aura that was intertwined and blocked all fluctuations let out a silent sob at this moment. "Big brother, big brother." Chen Ling and Li Yang's hearts were trembling, and their souls were crying blood. They were born with immortal spiritual bodies, and their Yuan spirits were their strongest existences. However, their collapse was much more serious than Panlong's. Although they had escaped with their lives, they couldn't even separate from each other at this moment. If they separated, they would disappear from the world. Their primordial spirits had actually been destroyed, and their 3 souls and 7 spirits were incomplete. Only when their souls were intertwined together could they prevent their souls and spirits from dissipating. However, it was impossible for them to recover their strength. At this moment, they couldn't even get close. the soaring blood aura would directly dissipate them. They could only rely on their powerful senses as spirit cultivators to see their big brother returning from afar. Their big brother was facing the 9 commanders of the foreign race and countless cultivators alone. The 2 lines of blood tears caused their hearts to tremble. The gradually turning red and unstoppable murderous intent broke their hearts. They couldn't stop it, couldn't? If they could, they definitely wouldn't let their big brother do this. What did it mean for Chen Hao's body to turn blood red? It was the diffusion of the murderous intent without any control. Even the spiritual altar was completely released, allowing the murderous intent to invade and permeate. Through killing, he became a demon. Big brother, why do you don't be sad? There's nothing to be sad about. When Big Brother starts his massacre and stains the 10 Directions territory with blood, we'll go with Big Brother. Let's go together. Yes, let's go together. Senior brother, you don't have to say it. I know what you want to say. In the next life, I'll be your big brother. No, in the next life, we'll still be Dao companions. I want to be Big Brother's sister, But we might not have a next life, senior brother. In the other direction, Coiling Dragon, who was only a Yuan spirit, was extremely fast. Although he had to avoid countless foreign race cultivators along the way, he still managed to make it in time. However, the densely packed foreign race cultivators formed a natural barrier that prevented him from passing through to meet up with Chen Hao. All he could do was to sense with his mind from afar. His senses weren't as strong as Chen Hao's and Li Yang's. He could only hear Chen Hao's voice and sense the monstrous murderous intent. He really wanted to go and fight side by side with his senior brother, but he couldn't do that now. There were too many foreign race cultivators gathered. In the end, he came too late and couldn't meet up with his senior brother in advance. In the distance, Hu Mainyang, Heli and Wuzi, and the others were desperately rushing. Unfortunately, they were in the barren area at the edge of the 10 Direction territory, and they received the news too late. It was basically impossible for them to catch up with Chen Hao. Starting from the periphery, all the cultivators of the human clan who discovered them chased after them madly. At first, there were only a few dozen people, then there were hundreds of people. Now, there were more than 10,000 people gathered. These were the remaining cultivators of the human clan, and they were basically the ones with higher cultivation. The weaker ones had already died. Being able to survive was a symbol of strength. This was only one direction. In the other direction of the 10 Direction territory, the scattered cultivators of the human clan gradually gathered from the periphery and rushed toward the core with all their might. Everyone knew that this would be a battle of life and death for the human race, and everyone was clearly aware that the chances of victory were practically zero. However, the return of the god of slaughter, Chen Hao, and his direct actions caused them to have no more scruples. Wasn't it just death? Then they would die a heroic death in battle. They would no longer drag out an ignoble existence. Their hope was almost zero, but it was the last hope, the last dawn. Whoosh! A gale that seemed to be stained with blood suddenly surged around Chen Hao. Oh no! Enter the devil's path by killing. The golden dragon was the first to let out a loud cry. Boom! The moment the golden dragon let out a loud cry, Chen Hao suddenly opened his eyes. They were scarlet like blood. Except for the endless killing intent, there were no more human emotions. Kill, only kill. At this moment, the slowly spreading killing intent erupted like a volcano the moment Chen Hao opened his eyes. The void suddenly shook. Chen Hao, who was like a mass of blood light, suddenly flashed and directly tore the void. When he appeared again, his figure had turned into a giant of 10,000 feet. Lin! Boom! Chen Hao, who had turned into a giant of 10,000 feet, opened his mouth, and a vast and majestic Dao sound bloomed from his roar. Bang! 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 Rumble! There was no suspense. The foreign race cultivators, who had emptied out a radius of 10 million miles, did not even have time to react at this moment. They were all shocked by this terrifying Dao sound. However, this was not Chen Hao's attack at all. It was just the pure power of the sound wave, which caused countless cultivators to explode and die. When the word Lin came out, Chen Hao's huge hands nimbly formed a talisman that seemed simple but contained endless mysteries, which matched with the Dao sound. In an instant, it was as if he had merged with heaven and earth, becoming one with heaven and earth. At the same time, the monstrous killing intent skyrocketed and became even more fierce and terrifying. It was a terrifying will that could destroy heaven and earth and the universe but could not be destroyed. The outline of the great Tao, the 9 words mantra, the Lin formula, and the Akalanatha seal. Once used, the cultivator would maintain their current mental state and would not panic in the face of danger. At this moment, their will would be unmoved and unperturbed, coexisting with heaven and earth. Even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of them, they would not be affected at all. This was originally a Tao technique to improve one's state of mind, but Chen Hao used it on his killing intent at this moment. Crazy! Boom boom boom. Among the horrifying screams, the spectating cultivators frantically gathered their own energy and quickly retreated. Go together! The golden dragon's eyes narrowed, and the power and Tao laws around him surged wildly. At the same time, he gave the order. 2 knights and 1, begging for votes. Dark Mountain continues. Chapter 1064. Lu Qianri, who insisted on using Chen Hao's name, could only say, "I," twice and did not say anything else. Was he going to challenge killing god Chen Hao alone? Just a moment ago, he was brimming with confidence and wished for nothing more than to slap the arrogant Chen Hao to death with a single slap. But at this moment, looking at Chen Hao's imposing body that had expanded by 10,000 times using the Great Change technique, the terrifying killing intent that was released, and the degree of madness that was driven by killing, all of this far exceeded his imagination. This was definitely not something he could deal with alone. He even suspected that it was possible for the 9 of them to join forces. Join forces? Give me the order. Go. Everyone go. Tyrants, those who retreat will die, and all 9 generations of your family will be exterminated. Boom. At this time, the Golden Dragon did not care about his reputation at all. Even if he could not figure out how Chen Hao could return and enter the 10-direction territory, he knew that the person in front of him was the real killing god Chen Hao. More than 10,000 years ago, he failed because of killing god Chen Hao. Today, more than 10,000 years later, when he was about to step into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, he encountered killing god Chen Hao again. It was as if it had long been destined that this would be the biggest obstacle, the biggest restraint, and the strongest opponent on his path of cultivation. Only by destroying it would he be able to eliminate the devil in his heart, and only by completely annihilating it would he be able to realize his ambitions and aspirations. However, he had no confidence in Chen Hao's aura at this moment. If he rushed forward, he would be looking for trouble. Therefore, without any hesitation, the Golden Dragon took the lead and issued an order to the tyrant's cultivators. It was the most ruthless order. What did it mean to exterminate all 9 generations of your family? It was not just the life and death of one person, but the life and death of an entire family, a sect, and the life and death of all your family and friends. The Golden Dragon was the commander of the tyrants in the 10-direction territory. When the 9 galaxies formed an alliance in the outside world this time, the 9 commanders had absolute control. Therefore, when he said that he would exterminate all 9 generations of his family, it was not an exaggeration. It would be carried out by the Galaxy Masters. Even he is afraid. Lu Qian was truly shocked. Just now, he had only been a little skeptical about whether the 9 of them could take down Chen Hao. Now, there was no longer any doubt. Since the Golden Dragon had given such an order, it was either that he was not confident or did not have the ability to do it. Otherwise, with the Golden Dragon's self-restraint, how could he send the tyrant's cultivators to their deaths? Celestials, listen to my orders. Anyone who disobeys will be executed. Lu Qianri also issued the order after a brief moment of shock. Heavenly Fiend Race, listen up. Dark Demon Clan, heed my command. Spare no expense. Soon after, the commanders of the 9 galaxies gave the order to fight to the death. Go. The leader of the army controlled the situation level by level, crazily forcing his subordinates to attack. This was undoubtedly a tragedy for many people. Moreover, everyone knew that those who went up first would definitely be cannon fodder. But now, there was nothing they could do. Otherwise, he would probably be killed by the powerful army leaders around him. After that, countless xenorace cultivators let out frenzied roars as they charged towards Chen Hao, who was like a towering devil god, with the resolve to die. It was only a vacuum of tens of millions of miles. Countless cultivators of the alien races, who were willing to sacrifice themselves, released their strongest divine powers and laws. This was the only way they might have a chance to survive. At this time, the cultivators of the alien races who were lucky enough not to rush to the front line were all praying in their hearts that they could kill Chen Hao with one blow. At the same time, everyone finally understood how terrifying Chen Hao, the god of killing, was. He alone made the Golden Dragon, who was known as the most powerful person in the chaotic universe, and the other 8 commanders abandoned their pride and dignity. They did not dare to fight him and instead asked everyone to attack him together. What did that mean? Senior brother. Senior brother. Pan Long's blood was boiling. Unfortunately, it was only in his mind. Without a physical body, how could he get blood? But at this moment he was undoubtedly excited to the extreme. He, who was addicted to fighting, had never thought of challenging the alliance of the 9 galaxies alone. What kind of heroism was this? What kind of strength was this? He wanted to rush out. He wanted to. But he knew that he could not add to the trouble at this time. Chen Ling and Li Yang, whose souls were entangled together, were dumbfounded when Chen Hao uttered the word Lin and formed the mysterious hand seal at the same time. Was he really obsessed with killing? Army! Boom! Chi 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 chi! Ah! When countless cultivators charged at Chen Hao like locusts with terrifying power, Chen Hao's huge body did not move at all. He opened his mouth, and with a roar he shot out another syllable. The pure sound wave directly caused the cultivators at the front to explode and die. The ones behind were like locusts that had suddenly been burned by fire, and they fell from the sky, screaming miserably. Buzz! Buzz buzz buzz! At this moment, Chen Hao formed another mysterious hand seal with his hands and merged with the word army. Great Vajra will seal. Become a weapon and command all the divine weapons in the world. Almost in an instant, those cultivators who had exploded, fallen, and were charging towards Chen Hao felt that the divine weapons, which were one with their minds, suddenly trembled and were cut off from their divine thoughts. The divine weapons violently flew out of their hands and attacked them. Fighting! The battle character art exploded out right after. At this moment, Chen Hao finally moved. The instant his hand seal was formed, his body that was like a mountain suddenly shook, and his battle intent and slaughter intent abruptly soared by a large amount. Boom! His entire body turned into a fiery red waterfall, crushing the void and charging toward the direction of the Golden Dragon and the other 8 commanders. Go, go, all of you go! The Golden Dragon roared, and his body swelled crazily at this moment. The other 8 experts also raised their strength to the peak, but like the Golden Dragon, they did not take a step forward. Boom! Boom boom boom! Ah 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 ah! Blood rained down from the sky, and the blood-curdling screams of pigs being slaughtered sounded one after another. Facing the cultivators who were forced to block Chen Hao's path, Chen Hao punched and kicked, turning them into minced meat. It was not enough to describe how he killed 10 people in one step. Join hands and form a divine ability. Combine your strength. Kill, 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 kill. At the beginning, the foreign race cultivators were completely cannon fodder, but after thousands of them were killed by Chen Hao in an instant, they finally understood that rushing forward like a swarm of bees was not enough, and was completely courting death. Therefore, it quickly became hundreds and thousands of people. They all gathered their strength and worked together to form an extremely terrifying attack. It was also at this moment that the effect appeared. Chen Hao's figure that was advancing at high speed like a cannonball was finally blocked and slowed down. Third update, seeking monthly votes. Chapter 1065. Chen Hao could have dodged their attacks and used the great teleportation technique to enter the crowd and kill them all. However, Chen Hao did not do that. Chaos? That would only happen when the 9 commanders started to panic. The murderous will permeated his entire body, and his beer was tainted. Naturally, he went into a murderous frenzy, but he controlled it to the right level. The mantra of 9 syllables contained in the outline of the Great Way, the Lin formula, restricted this delicate balance. His mind was filled with endless murderous thoughts, but he was abnormally clear-headed. He knew very well that there was a limit to one person's power. It was impossible to kill all the alien races at once. However, the 9 great commanders had to die today. None of them could escape. When they were not panicking, which meant that they could not escape, since the other party wanted to send these cannon fodders to their deaths, why should he not? The tyrants, deities, insects, heavenly demons, dark demons, winged demons, goblins, elves, and ghost race took turns to attack. One wave was killed, and the next wave charged forward. Chen Hao reaped life after life coldly and mercilessly. His enormous body had long since been stained with blood and covered with shocking wounds under the increasingly close and powerful attacks of his opponents. However, he, who seemed to have entered a state of obsession with killing, did not notice it at all. Kill, 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 only kill. Blood dyed the surrounding thousands of miles red. Blood flowed like rivers, and white bones formed mountains. The god of killing Chen Hao moved slower and slower. However, he stepped on the eerie white bones and moved forward step by step with determination. When tens of thousands of alien race cultivators were killed, the lucky ones who had not entered the battlefield were already terrified. Their legs and stomachs were trembling. When the number exceeded 100,000, some of the cultivators who were forced to enter the battlefield directly collapsed under the instinctive desire to win. They screamed and wanted to disobey orders to escape, but they were immediately killed by the leaders of the alien race army. No one could retreat. Go, go, those who retreat will die. Do you see? He's getting weaker and weaker. Your deaths are worth it. Die for the glory of your race. The 9 great commanders, including the Golden Dragon, were extremely shocked. What kind of monster was this? Even the Golden Dragon felt a chill run down his spine. Who was the Golden Dragon? The Shao clan's patriarch. He really couldn't figure out how a cultivator from the Daluo Golden Wonderland could be so powerful. Previously, when he thought that it was impossible for the god of slaughter Chen Hao to appear in the ancient Chaos Great Thousand World, he also thought that even if the god of slaughter Chen Hao returned and reached the same level as him, he would not be a match for him. This was because the current him was different from the Shao Yan of the past. Shao Yan's heaven-defying 10 lives defying heavens was simply a shortcut to the heaven-defying path. Now, because of the destruction of Shao Yan, Meng Hao gained enlightenment, and gained new enlightenment regarding the true 10th anima. He had truly broken through the limits of numbers, and was able to create the true 10th anima. This was definitely not something that Shao Yan could compare to. The Golden Dragon, was named after the ancestor of the Shao clan had comprehended the mysteries of Shao Yan's golden scale dragon transformation. The difference between Shao Yan of the past and the current Golden Dragon was the difference between a golden scale dragon and a golden scale dragon. But now, the god of slaughter Chen Hao had returned. The aura that he released at the beginning made him understand that he was no match for the god of slaughter Chen Hao. Even he couldn't kill more than 100,000 cultivators in one go. Fortunately, as the battle continued, the injuries on Chen Hao's huge body became more and more serious. Although the will of slaughter he displayed became more and more terrifying, his battle strength continued to weaken. This caused the Golden Dragon's shocked expression to gradually ease, and it turned into a boundless coldness. An ant can kill an elephant, huh? God of slaughter Chen Hao, so what if you're strong? Today is the day you die. No one can save you. The Golden Dragon roared as he watched Chen Hao grow weaker and weaker. Phew! At this time, Lu Chenye and the other great commanders, who had been in a tense state, let out a long sigh of relief. They were shocked to find that their backs were already drenched in cold sweat. He's too strong. God of slaughter Chen Hao. Is he really just Daluo Jinxian? He's definitely stronger than the invincible Supreme Hongmeng. I wanted to fight him one-on-one. Lu Qinya shuddered at the thought of it. Go, go, go. Victory is in sight. Masters, there's no need to sacrifice too many people. The golden dragons suddenly shouted again. Immediately, the 8 great commanders also gave out orders. At this point, even they didn't want to send the cultivators of the same clan to their deaths. It was undoubtedly the best to let the masters fight. Kill, kill, kill. Tens of thousands of masters in the army made their moves at this moment. Although they had long been frightened by Chen Hao's heaven-defying strength, now, no matter how strong God of Slaughter Chen Hao was, he was an arrow at the end of its flight. It was undoubtedly a very lucky thing to be able to kill such a terrifying existence. Even if it was like an ant biting an elephant to death, roar. Right at this moment, Chen Hao let out a furious roar towards the sky. Suddenly, his entire body shook, and his enormous body instantly returned to its original size. The countless shocking injuries on his body had shockingly vanished completely as he returned to his original form. With a flash of light between his eyebrows, Chen Hao's hands suddenly put on a trap that bloomed with a terrifying aura. At the same time, the Overlord Spear's domineering aura spread out. Immediately, Chen Hao's figure suddenly flashed and disappeared into thin air. The great teleportation technique. The 8 commanders, who had just relaxed and their minds had become a little more agile from their sluggish state, suddenly let out a cry of surprise. With a boom, they once again frantically roused their energy. As for the golden dragon, it rose into the air at an extremely terrifying speed with a whoosh. In an instant, he crossed tens of millions of miles. The dazzling spear light seemed to cut through the void and appeared directly with Chen Hao's cold voice. Boom. The Goblin Clan commander, who reacted a little slower than the Golden Dragon and the other 7 great commanders, was suddenly enveloped by a terrifying soul pressure. He used all his strength and completely subconsciously burst out a heart-wrenching cry to meet the spear light that seemed to break through the void. In this short moment, everyone saw the Goblin Clan commander being pierced between his eyebrows by the spear and then exploding to death. Then, like a flash flood erupting and the collapse of stars, the entire space was annihilated. Amidst the mushroom cloud of terrifying energy explosion, a ray of resplendent spear aura suddenly shot out, blinding everyone's eyes. Innumerable sounds of people sucking in cold air and falling to the ground due to fright spread out. Don't even think about escaping. Chen Hao's voice, which seemed to come from the depths of hell, resounded between heaven and earth. At this moment, the golden dragon revealed a horrified expression, and the 7 great commanders, who thought that they had avoided Chen Hao's sudden attack, suddenly screamed in horror. 4th update requesting monthly votes. Wushan will continue. Please everyone, monthly votes. Chapter 1066. As Chen Hao uttered the word, seal, the magnificent vitality and green light spurted out of his glabella like green tentacles that slithered forward and twisted the time and space. At this moment, the time and space within hundreds of millions of kilometers seemed to have come to a standstill. Only the green tentacles that looked like snakes and dragons spread out crazily from Chen Hao's glabella and instantly covered the sky and the sun, engulfing the entire space. Dash! Screams of terror, cries of despair, and frenzied and desperate shouts resounded throughout the world after a brief moment of silence. When some people were entangled by the tentacles, their minds were destroyed by the murderous will contained in them. Other than screaming and crazily struggling to release energy, they couldn't even remember to use their ultimate techniques. Instantly, their arms, legs, and heads disappeared one after another as if they had been melted into the tentacles. Some people unleashed even more powerful strength in their panic and tried to flee into the distance. There were also some people who frantically protected themselves. They unleashed their divine abilities at all costs to block the tentacles that blotted out the sky and seemed to be able to devour everything. A few people made the wisest decision in the blink of an eye. They detonated their bodies and fled to the periphery with their souls that were multiple times faster than their bodies. The Golden Dragon and the 7 commanders, on the other hand, bombarded the tentacles that were close to them violently and fled at high speed. However, no matter how fast they fled, the tentacles that seemed to be growing in the wind got farther and farther away from Chen Hao. Instead of weakening, they became stronger and stronger. The infinite vitality, the endless laws of Tao, and the magnificent and horrifying murderous will were all rapidly strengthening. Today, I will offer an endless sacrifice to your undead souls with endless blood. I will rebuild your bodies with endless blood. At this moment, the Golden Dragon, the 7 commanders, and the countless cultivators who were relatively strong and hadn't been scared out of their wits watched the endless lives around them disappear and the mountains of blood and bones that had belonged to more than 100,000 people being devoured by the green tentacles crazily. In their minds, they recalled the voice that God of Slaughter Chen Hao murmured with tears of blood before the battle. Fear. Boundless fear. Under this boundless fear, the Golden Dragon knew that Chen Hao was no longer in existence that could be defeated by the combined forces of all the cultivators in the 9 galaxies. His title as the #1 Grand Luo in Ancient Chaos was simply a joke in front of him. Was he any different from those cannon fodders from before? No. No matter how powerful his divine ability was, it could only delay the time it took for him to be devoured. Let alone attacking Chen Hao, who seemed to have transformed into a tree that connected the 9 heavens and 10 earth. Without a doubt, judging from the dense tentacles that covered the sky and earth around him and the 7 commanders, what they were facing was much stronger than the other cultivators. Even if they destroyed their physical bodies, their primordial spirits would not be able to escape. Roar! The Golden Dragon didn't dare to hesitate any longer, and it suddenly let out a thunderous roar. Although he was fuming with anger, and although he knew that doing so would directly affect the peak power of the fusion in the future, he had no choice but to do so. He couldn't hesitate any longer, or else it wouldn't be as simple as being devoured in the 10th anima. Boundless and terrifying essence, which contained the mysteries of Hongmeng Qi, soared into the sky with the Golden Dragon's roar. At the same time, an incomparably resplendent light bloomed from between his brows, triggering divine punishment. Before the prototype of the great cosmos had been tempered into a perfect framework, or more accurately, before the basic framework had truly taken shape, the Golden Dragon had triggered divine punishment. By doing so, his strength would be greatly affected after he stepped into the Hongmeng realm. The most direct effect would be that the increase in strength after his original body fused with the 10th anima would be greatly reduced. But there was no other way. It was better than being devoured. Once he was devoured, all the secrets of his original body would be exposed. Moreover, his original body didn't have much time to sacrifice the 10th anima to form a new one. Only by triggering divine punishment could he escape with his life. Brother Jean, save me. Save me. Brother Jean, save me. I will submit to you and follow you forever. Brother Jean, save me. At this moment, the other 7 great commanders hadn't fused with the great cosmos brand. To be precise, they hadn't comprehended the Hongmeng Qi in order to hunt down the proud heavens members and human cultivators. Now, they were madly rushing toward the Golden Dragon. Divine punishment. They knew very well that once the Golden Dragon triggered divine punishment, it didn't matter if the prototype of the great cosmos was perfect or not, it would still take shape and have a great cosmos in its mind. Then, they could enter the great cosmos in its mind and escape from the hands of the god of slaughter Chen Hao, the devil. Stop him with all your might. When divine punishment descends, hold on until it's over. I'll take you with me and escape. The Golden Dragon roared. Even if he triggered divine punishment, the Milky Way tunnel connecting the 9 heavens and 10 earths would only open after the divine punishment was over. Only then could he leave the 10 corners domain. Therefore, before that, they had to stop the terrifying Chen Hao. Alright, let's join forces and stop him. If we can hold on, we'll live. If we can't, we'll die. Let's fight. Fight. Protect Brother Jean. The 7 great commanders were not idiots. They immediately understood the key point, so at this moment, no one hesitated. As for ordering others? There were not many cultivators within a radius of tens of millions of kilometers who were still persevering. Those who were quick on the uptake wished that they had more legs when their parents gave birth to them so that they could run as fast as they could. How could they still obey orders? They could only rely on themselves. Boom, boom. They all released berserk power as they desperately tried to block and moved to the golden dragon's side. Terrifying tribulation clouds quickly condensed as the golden dragon's aura madly gathered. The golden dragon knew that he had to give up the tempering of divine punishment. The moment the first divine punishment appeared, he had to destroy it and give up the tempering of resisting it head-on. Only in this way could he open the Milky Way tunnel as soon as possible. It's useless. A voice that seemed to come from the Nine Serenities hell suddenly rang in their ears. Big brother, it's me, Ling. Big brother, it's us. When the tentacles spread tens of millions of miles, hundreds of millions of miles, and hundreds of millions of miles, chasing after the cultivators who were fleeing in all directions, Qinling and Liang, who were also in a daze and extremely terrified, suddenly unleashed the last bit of aura left in their souls and shouted frantically. They had no idea if Qinhao could recognize them. After all, Qinhao's original body was more than 100 million miles away from here. It was most likely that he would devour and destroy everything. The two of them looked at the tentacles that were getting closer and closer to them, and they were extremely terrified. They could naturally escape if they wanted to, but they shouted desperately and released their auras, hoping to hold on until the last moment. If their big brother's consciousness was not in the tentacles, then they could only run. Fifth update, begging for monthly votes. Chapter 1067. When the tentacles were only about 100 kilometers away from the two of them and were about to reach them in the blink of an eye, the endless and dense tentacles suddenly separated to the two sides as if a watershed had appeared. With a swish, after bypassing the two of them, the tentacles interweaved again and quickly extended into the distance. Phew! Qinling and Liang, who had been holding their breath, finally breathed a sigh of relief. They're making way? At this moment, what surprised Qinling and Liang even more was that in the direction of Qinhao, the endless tentacles quickly separated, forming a cave-like passage. Needless to say, this passage had been specially opened for the two of them. Big brother, swish! The two of them burst into tears of joy as they turned into streaks of light and charged toward Qinhao. Senior brother! Ha! In another direction, Curly Dragon's soul, which could be considered tough, was laughing in excitement. But his eyes, which looked like a shadow, were red. Just like Qinling and Liang, he rushed into a channel that was cleared for him. A while later, Qinling, Liang, and Panlong's souls were only barely able to control their dispersing souls after their souls had intertwined. They directly entered Qinhao's mental world through the tunnel created by the tentacles. There was no time gap at all. The moment the three of them entered, boundless and pure vitality and endless spiritual chi of the world poured over them. Big brother! Big brother! Sob, sob, sob. Qinling sensed the endless life force and energy of the world surrounding her, which was filled with care and fear that she would not be able to withstand it all of a sudden. It seemed to have turned into streams that fused into her heavily injured soul. She immediately cried out loud. Don't cry. No matter how serious your wounds are, Big Brother will heal them. When Qinhao sensed that Qinling and Liang's souls were damaged and could only be maintained by fusing their souls together, he consoled them with heartache. Big brother, don't worry about us for now. We can't let that golden dragon escape. Liang sternly said. That's right, senior brother. Kill them all. Kill them all. Let's avenge little Nan, Du Jing, and all of our brothers and sisters in proud heaven. Elder brother. When it came to little Nan and Du Jing, Coiling Dragon, who looked like a ferocious beast, began to choke with sobs. Rest assured. None of them will escape. They will all die. Swish, swish. In the outside world, the 7 commanders had arrived around the golden dragon to protect it. When Qinhao suddenly spoke, the tentacles suddenly tightened, as if they had turned into long spears. Suddenly, the murderous will and the laws of the mystical powers were released. It was unknown how many times stronger they had become, but they covered the sky and covered the earth as they blasted out in an extremely violent manner. Ah! Boom 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 boom. The 7 commanders and the golden dragon, who was in the center, roared in horror at this moment. They were like ferocious beasts that had been trapped in a cage and had gone completely mad. However, this was only the first round of attacks. They didn't sense anything unusual among the tentacles. Suddenly, a dazzling spear light flashed with a mysterious aura that was completely beyond the knowledge of the 7 great commanders. Even the golden dragon's pupils constricted. Without any suspense, the spear pierced through the forehead of the winged clan commander. Swish! Swish! However, this time, the body of the winged clan commander didn't explode. Instead, it was pierced like a hedgehog by the countless tentacles that seemed to have turned into spears. In an instant, its flesh and blood disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even its bones were entangled and devoured by the tentacles. No! I don't want to die! I don't want to die! This horrifying scene frightened the other 6 great commanders. The elf clan commander gave up resisting and knelt down with a plop. Killing God Shen Hao, please let me go. I don't want to die. I'm willing to be your slave. Please let me go. Facing this power that was on a completely different level, he was in complete despair. This was only the first round of powerful attacks, and the winged clan commander who was no weaker than him had his soul destroyed with a single spear strike. Then, his soul was devoured until nothing was left. How long could they last? It was impossible for them to survive the 9 levels of heavenly punishment. Trash, you're courting death. The golden dragon was furious. Without any hesitation, he slapped at the elf clan commander. It's not your turn to attack. Swish, swish, swish. Chen Hao's cold voice sounded again, and the endless tentacles blocked the golden dragon's horrifying attack. Then, with a series of puff, 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 the desperate elf clan commander was pierced like a hedgehog and devoured completely. Slaves? How dare you? I'll kill you one by one. I'll use your blood as a sacrifice to my brothers and sisters. Don't worry, your soul consciousness won't disappear so quickly. What awaits you is an endless purgatory and endless pain. What? Chen Hao's cold voice sent chills down the spines of the golden dragon, Lu Qianri, and the others. Could it be that the devouring earlier didn't destroy their souls? Death wasn't the most horrifying thing. What was horrifying was being unable to live or die. Devil, devil, devil? What was it when the 9 galaxies joined hands to fight against the human clan and killed the human clan's cultivators? I'm just giving you a taste of your own medicine. It's your turn now. Puff! The Overlord's spear suddenly shot out from one of the tentacles at lightning speed. Boundless profoundness, terrifying pressure, and majestic and violent power. Without any suspense, the Overlord's spear pierced through the Spirit Clan commander's forehead. Boom! Crack! The first heavenly punishment finally descended under the golden dragon's frenzied urging and triggering. At this moment, the golden dragon was terrified, but he didn't give up hope. Suddenly, he punched the heavenly punishment descending from the sky toward the tribulation cloud. Hold on, all of you. There's still hope, there's still hope. The golden dragon roared. At this moment, to the golden dragon's horror, a stream of light that was faster than his attack suddenly appeared above him. At the same time, a huge handprint came crashing down. Boom, boom. The golden dragon's attack, which had gathered all of his strength, was annihilated by the handprint. How can such a powerful heavenly punishment be wasted? Chen Hao, who had countless tentacles extending from his forehead, stood proudly in the void at this moment. He looked up at the terrifying heavenly punishment descending from the sky and separated all of his tentacles so that his physical body could be directly exposed to the heavenly punishment. How is this possible? How can you be so strong? How is this possible? The golden dragon looked up at the figure standing proudly and roared in horror. God of slaughter Chen Hao, if you dare to kill me, the God clan won't let you go. I'm the last disciple of the controller. Lu Qianri's face was pale and his body was trembling, but he still shouted at Chen Hao frantically. The last disciple of the controller? I didn't say that I'm going to kill you. How can I kill you? At the very least, I should leave behind your soul origin brand. As someone from the ancient chaos universe, I haven't been to any of your major galaxies. No matter what, I have to go and have some fun. Boom. Boom. Chen Hao endured the endless bombardment of lightning, but his voice didn't fluctuate at all. Such terrifying strength made Lu Qianye and the others completely despair. First update, begging for monthly votes. Thank you. Chapter 1068. Roar. The golden dragon suddenly let out a terrifying roar. You forced me to do this? Oh? Are you going to use your true Abhijna law? Don't you want to hide anymore? Chen Hao interrupted the golden dragon before he could finish his sentence. He looked down at the mad golden dragon with disdain, his eyes shining brightly. What do you know? Naive. Don't worry, you can't do anything. I'll kill you with my own hands and wash the tyrant clan's gene family with blood. How do you know? You want to know? Then I might as well tell you that the 10th anima you've comprehended is too weak. Although you've broken through a level compared to Xiaoyan, compared to me, it's not enough. Your essence is still connected, so how can it be considered a true 10th anima? How do you know? Then I'll have to thank Xiaoyan. I'm only SOSO in other aspects, but when it comes to comprehending ultimate laws, I'm pretty good. I accidentally comprehended the true 9 lives profundities, and broke through to the 10th life. I guess that counts as having comprehended it. It's a pity that my 9 lives haven't been fully condensed, so I can't try it out. What problem? The golden dragon seemed to have completely accepted his fate. He looked up at Chen Hao, who was standing in the void and resisting his heavenly punishment. To be able to derive the 10th life, even if it was Xiaoyan back then, you should have recovered to your peak strength, right? But your strength back then? Oh, I'm talking about your original body. You couldn't dominate the vast universe galaxy. Your 9 lives must have entered other galaxies and obtained a very high status, right? Hearing Chen Hao's words, the golden dragon looked terrified, but there was still a trace of pride in his eyes. You're very smart. At the same time, I also have a problem. If you fused your 9 lives, I believe that Senior Yi, who hasn't succeeded in Nirvana, wouldn't be your opponent, right? Even if you joined forces with my father, it wouldn't be enough, right? Why didn't you unify the vast universe galaxy first? Why did you split up? Old man wants to. If it was as simple as you think, the old man would have controlled the ancient chaos-boundless world long ago. Oh, so it turns out that I underestimated Senior Yi. And you don't have to waste your energy. Don't even think about sending out any information. What? At this moment, the golden dragon was truly shocked. The 10-direction territory shielded all the mysteries of heaven, but he had the ability to penetrate the 10-direction territory. The great deduction skill that he told the 8 commanders was just an excuse. He knew nothing about the legendary great deduction skill. Among the countless worlds in the endless star river, only a few super powerful figures who had the cultivation method of the great deduction skill could break through it. At most, they could understand a little bit of it. It was impossible for them to penetrate the 10-direction territory that shielded the mysteries of heaven. However, he was in the 10th life. Once the major world imprint was refined into a basic prototype, he could rely on the link between the origin and the original body. The embryonic form of the major world of the 10th life and the original body's major world could link up with the aura of the outside world and obtain a certain amount of deduction ability. At this moment, he had triggered the divine punishment. Although the embryonic form of the major world had not been refined into a basic framework, once the divine punishment moved, it meant that it had taken shape. Through this subtle link, he could confidently transmit information to the original body. This was his biggest plan in talking to Chen Hao and stalling for time. He was certain that he could not keep the 10th life. If he could send the information back, at least the original body would be prepared. Chen Hao's heaven-defying ability was a huge threat to the original body, let alone the golden dragon. In the 10-direction territory, once he ascended to the Grand Mist Supremacy realm and stepped out of the 10-direction territory, he would be no less an obstacle than Chen Hao. However, he did not expect that everything he did seemed to be under the control of Chen Hao. Buzz. Endless mysterious runes suddenly appeared out of nowhere in the void. Every rune released an extremely terrifying pressure, as if they were shielding the heavens and the earth. How is it? Not bad, right? Chen Hao said with a slight smile, the corners of his mouth curling up slightly. However, the cold light in his eyes and the blood-red killing intent did not diminish in the slightest. How is this possible? Who the hell are you? Chen Hao, nicknamed the Killing God. Who else could he be? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Even a true immortal severing Tao, even if the old man was in his peak state, could not comprehend such a terrifying divine ability. Your runes, this aura, although it's still very weak, its mystery is definitely a divine ability above the true immortal king realm. You're indeed an old fart. You're quite knowledgeable. This is merely an immortal sutra that I comprehended in another greater thousand world. It's just so. As he spoke, Lu Qianri and the others, who had already given up resisting, were already entangled by the endless tentacles. Even their souls were imprisoned. However, Chen Hao did not immediately make a move. He did not even look at them. Only the Golden Dragon was free at this moment. However, the Golden Dragon, or rather the Shao clan patriarch's 10th life, knew very well that the other party only wanted to use his heavenly punishment to temper himself. Once the 9th heavenly punishment descended, he would be at the mercy of the other party. I can't let him off so easily. The Golden Dragon, who was in complete despair, had 2 rays of resolute light in his eyes. Suddenly he shook with a buzz, and wanted to explode and die. This was the best outcome. It was much better than being completely controlled by the other party and unable to live or die. However, just as his body shook, Chen Hao, who was staring at him, had a trace of disdain in his eyes. As for the Golden Dragon, his face was ghastly pale. Unknowingly, the mysterious runes had already invaded his soul and body. Just as his soul power and true yuan moved, they were imprisoned. Crack, rumble, the Golden Dragon's essence, energy, and spirit were all under Chen Hao's control, causing the terrifying heavenly punishment to descend continuously. Chen Hao was strong, not because of his absolute strength, but because of his divine power laws that completely surpassed his realm. At the same time, Chen Hao had also used a power that belonged to him but was not his true strength. The Tao manifestation Immortal Fruit Tree. This was something that Chen Hao had never been willing to use or rely on. However, this time, the boundless killing intent and hatred made Chen Hao cast aside all his scruples. He used the cruel and inhumane methods that the other party had used on the human race. Devour. Devour everything. Any cultivator who could not surpass Chen Hao in terms of absolute strength would not be able to stop this devouring. After chasing for a full 1 billion miles, Chen Hao's powerful soul power finally reached its limit. He could no longer control the Tao manifestation Immortal Fruit Tree to continue forward. However, Chen Hao was already very satisfied. Even before the battle, he had not expected to achieve such an effect. Second update, seeking monthly votes. Chapter 1069. How many alien races had he killed and devoured? At least 1 million. Those who managed to escape were the alien race cultivators who were originally in the periphery and far away. Moreover, at least 1/3 of them had escaped by relying on their primordial spirits. When the Golden Dragon's heavenly punishment reached the 9th level, Chen Hao, who was equipped with a divine weapon, directly smashed the Golden Dragon's body and soul into a state of collapse before the Milky Way tunnel appeared. This was the only way to stop the heavenly punishment from continuing. Otherwise, even if the Golden Dragon was sucked into the spiritual world, the mysterious heavenly punishment would not end as long as he did not die. The Milky Way tunnel would appear even in Chen Hao's spiritual world. After that, Chen Hao completely bound the Golden Dragon's soul fragments and sucked them into the spiritual world along with the other 5 commanders. The moment they entered, Lu Qianri and the other 4 were dumbfounded. Their hearts were filled with confusion, and boundless fear. the spiritual world. This was the symbol of the Grand Mist's supremacy realm, and no one was an exception. What did that mean? It meant that killing God Chen Hao was the supreme of Hongmeng. They finally understood why they had lost so miserably and why they had no power to fight back. However, how could the supreme of Hongmeng enter the 10 Directions territory? Unfortunately, other than being conscious, they could not even move. Chen Hao naturally would not answer their doubts. Fear. This was because the place they'd appeared in was a sea of blood and a mountain of corpses that was formed from endless blood and severed limbs. Countless collapsed soul energies and incomplete souls filled this place, and they were wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. It was like purgatory on earth, and it was filled with the emotions left behind by the dead at the instant of their deaths: terror, the evil aura, and the souls that pounced on them madly and attacked their soul residences and minds were like malicious ghosts. They were imprisoned and could not resist at all. In just a moment, their minds had completely collapsed and they fell into boundless fear. However, they were protected by a mysterious force that kept their consciousness on the verge of collapse, but it did not collapse. At the same time, the soul fragments of the 3 commanders of the succubus tribe, the Wing tribe, and the Elf tribe, as well as the Golden Dragon, were quickly fusing and reforming under Chen Hao's mysterious power. Of course, Chen Hao could not help them fully recover, nor did he have the ability to do so. He could only help them regain their consciousness. Do you want to die? It was too difficult. If it weren't for the heavenly punishment, Chen Hao wouldn't have destroyed it and spent so much effort to repair its soul fragments. The others could be killed, but Jin Long and the other 8 had to be left for Coiling Dragon and the others. In the past, even if Chen Hao went on a killing spree, he would always abide by the principle of not going too far when killing people. He disdained to trample on his enemies. But this time, let alone his brothers and sisters, even he didn't want to let them die so easily. Hiss hiss hiss. When Chen Hao sat down cross-legged, the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree's extended tentacles began to retract. What a terrifying growth rate! A moment later, Chen Hao was shocked. The great world in his mind seemed to be restricting the growth of the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree. This time, he had combined his divine power and nomological laws to madly hunt and devour foreign race cultivators, allowing the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree to grow at an astonishing rate in a short period of time. The retracted tentacles turned into branches and leaves that blotted out the sky. Boundless vitality was extremely dense and rooted in the spirit spring sea. The main trunk seemed to be connected to Chen Hao's great world in his mind. The dense branches and leaves almost covered the entire spirit spring sea. Invincible among those of the same level. As long as the heavenly Tao nomological laws and absolute power don't surpass me, I only need to use the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree to be invincible. There's nothing I can't devour. What a monster! I should use it less in the future. Chen Hao thought to himself. He had no choice this time, but Chen Hao knew that if he really used the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree as his greatest reliance and used it frequently, it would not be a good thing. It was a power that belonged to him and was closely related to his cultivation, but it did not belong to him. It was fine to use it occasionally, but if he really relied on it, it would be a huge problem for his future growth. It was like a Dharma treasure. He could not rely on it too much, or it would limit his growth. Moreover, if his absolute power and comprehension of the heavenly Tao nomological laws surpassed Chen Hao's, the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree would not be able to unleash its full power. After completely retracting the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree into the great world in his mind, Chen Hao's divine thought materialized and appeared in front of Qin Ling and Li Yang. Big brother, big brother. Qin Ling and Li Yang's souls were still entangled. Although their auras were much stronger now, the damage to their souls was not something that could be healed in a short period of time. Even now, Chen Hao had no way to heal them. Soul injuries were the most difficult to heal in the world, just like the destruction of the physical body. If the physical body was destroyed, the only way was to rebuild the golden body. However, even if the cultivator used blood essence to rebuild the golden body, only a very small portion could be obtained and awakened. Moreover, It involved the problem of compatibility. Of course, as time passed, the effects of rebuilding the golden body would not be too serious. As long as the blood essence used was strong enough, it was possible to surpass the original physical body. However, it was almost impossible to heal a soul injury. Even if it was an extreme Tao spirit cultivator, it could only be completely restored in theory, but that was under the condition that the 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls were complete. Chen Ling and Li Yang had lost half of their 3 spiritual souls and spirits. When the 2 of them fused together, it was just enough to form the 3 spiritual souls and spirits that could not dissipate. Recover your soul strength first. I'll think of a way. I can't do it now. Wait until I reach the Hongmeng realm. I can't do it in the Hongmeng realm. Wait until I become a true immortal. One day, I'll be able to heal your souls completely. Big brother, it's okay. We're already very satisfied to be alive and see you kill all our enemies. Big brother, senior brother and I have discussed it. Discussed it? About what? We want to reincarnate and become human again. We want to be real people and not immortal spiritual bodies. How can that be? In your current state, you won't be able to inherit your memories if you reincarnate. Once you reincarnate, you won't be you anymore. Even if you have the same soul origin, you'll have an end to this life. Absolutely not. Big brother, we know that you have many divine abilities, but our souls are already incomplete. There's no way to heal them. Moreover, before we reincarnate, you just need to leave a mark on our soul origin. One day we'll be together again. Don't even think about it. Don't say such things in the future unless I really have no other way. The extreme Tao spirit cultivator that your master left behind is not at the peak of the great Tao. Even if he can't do it, it doesn't mean that I can't do it. Third update, I beg for monthly votes. Chapter 1070. Brother, don't give up. Recover your soul power first. I will think of a way. Wait until I become the supreme of Hongmeng, then I will help you reconstruct your golden bodies. After saying that, Chen Hao left and went in front of Pan Long, senior brother. Pan Long shouted excitedly. His primordial spirit, which hadn't suffered much damage, had already recovered to its peak condition under the energy Chen Hao had created. Help me reconstruct my golden body. I'm going to kill them with my own hands. I want to kill every single one of them who escaped. Wait until I become the supreme of Hongmeng, then I will help you reconstruct your golden body. It will be stronger that way. How can that be? Senior brother, when you become the supreme of Hongmeng, you will leave the 10 directions territory. Coiling Dragon said. Let's just make one for now. Chen Hao said. All right. Senior brother, it can't be too weak. Otherwise, I won't be able to use my full strength. Lu Qianri of the celestial race has a very strong physical body. Try it first. Maybe it will suit you. With a thought, Chen Hao pulled Lu Qianri out of the sea of corpses and appeared in front of Chen Hao. Don't. Lu Qianri waved his arms wildly. He was still immersed in the fear left behind by the deaths of millions of cultivators. Although the millions of cultivators could not be compared to Chen Hao, they were still the masters of the Daluo Golden Wonderland. Although the emotions left behind by these people could not be formed into divine consciousness, they were still extremely powerful. Moreover, there were millions of cultivators mixed together. Even Chen Hao might not be able to withstand the fear left behind by the sea of corpses, let alone Lu Qianri. Motherfucker, weren't you arrogant before? Now you are like an idiot who has lost his mind. Coiling Dragon said disdainfully. Wait a minute, I will let you try it. Chen Hao looked at Coiling Dragon and suddenly thought of a good way to train him. Try what? Buzz. Chen Hao tapped lightly, and the space around him shook. Pan Long suddenly screamed in fear. His eyes popped out, and his primordial spirit trembled. Senior brother. What is that? All the cultivators of the foreign races that were killed, mountains of corpses, seas of blood, and the lingering wills they left behind when they died. In other words, emotions. If you can withstand it, your will and state of mind will improve tremendously. As Chen Hao spoke, he reached out and grabbed at Lu Qianrui's forehead. Lu Qianrui's soul was extracted and thrown into the sea of corpses by Chen Hao. Since you've taken over this body, I'll send you in to temper yourself. Senior brother, I think it's better if you don't. Coiling Dragon's soul immediately began to tremble. He had only glanced at it earlier, but the hellish scene made his scalp tingle. In particular, the presence of fear within it had directly shaken his soul. There's no room for discussion. It was pure luck that your primordial spirit managed to survive this time. What about next time? Could it be that you expect your senior brother to always be by your side? Could it be? Senior brother, don't say any more. I'll go. Buzz. Coiling Dragon's primordial spirit trembled and directly entered Lu Qianrui's forehead. Immediately, he easily took control of this soulless body. Of course, if he wanted to unleash its power, he would have to work hard to temper himself. Entering the terrifying emotional pressure of the mountains of corpses and seas of blood was undoubtedly the best place to temper himself. Senior brother, send me in. Unless I'm about to die, don't worry about me. Good. That's right. Only when one is ruthless to oneself will one not give others the chance to be ruthless to themselves. I'll send you in. Not only will you have to endure the boundless emotional pressure, but I'll also exert the pressure of the great Tao on you. If you can adapt well to this body, when I become the Supreme of Hongmeng, I'll reconstruct a golden body for you on the basis of this body. Go. With a flash of crystal light, Coiling Dragon disappeared from where he was. When he reappeared, he was in the sea of corpses and seas of blood. The boundless emotions of fear made Coiling Dragon tremble and break out in cold sweat. In an instant, it was as if countless terrifying ghosts were attacking his mind. All kinds of feelings of fear began to spread in Coiling Dragon's mind. At the same time, the boundless Tao law pressure poured down from the sky and enveloped Coiling Dragon. If Zhou Qinglong and the other evildoers in the chaotic universe were here, they would find that the Tao law pressure came from the three great immortal scriptures. Coiling Dragon roared and immediately began to resist desperately. The expression of the body he had just occupied was distorted beyond recognition. Become stronger, I want to become stronger. Nothing can frighten me, nothing can overwhelm me. While Chen Ling and Li Yang were recovering their soul strength, Coiling Dragon entered the sea of corpses and seas of blood to refine himself and his new body. Chen Shui was still in a deep sleep as Chen Hao refined her reborn body. Chen Hao began to merge with the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree and condensed the majestic vitality he had devoured this time with the things Zhou Qinglong had given him. At the same time, Hu Mainyang, Helian Wuzi, Long Ting, and the other members of the Proud Heavens took turns to cast spells and approached the core area day and night. The boundless 10-direction territory was too large. In addition, the members of the Proud Heavens and the cultivators of the human tribe had fled to the periphery. It was impossible for them to reach the core area in time. After all, they were already half a year later than Chen Hao when they received the news. You must wait for us to arrive. Even if it's the last time we see each other. Helian Wuzi was shrouded in chaotic divine light. She shuttled quickly with several members of the Proud Heavens. Her cold face was full of anxiety. He left for more than 10,000 years and came back to the 10-direction territory. Why can't he come to us first? If I don't tell him, what about them? Even if we have to risk our lives, can't we go together? Hu Mainyang also brought several people and sped up to the limit. However, she had a different idea from Helian Wuzi. She was different from the other girls. From the beginning to the end, she had never promised anything to Chen Hao. As the saintess of the Misty Rain House, she could not promise anything. Although Chen Hao had long been imprinted in her heart, just like the members of the Proud Heavens, she had never treated her as an equal to Chen Shui and the others. Of course, she had such thoughts at the moment because she had concluded in the depths of her heart that no matter how strong Chen Hao was, he could not fight against the alliance of the 9 galaxies alone. The powerful Golden Dragon and the 8 commanders were not weak. Moreover, even if Chen Hao was stronger than the Golden Dragon and the others, who would want to fight him one-on-one? This was the last light, but it was more likely to be the last battle. Unfortunately, they had received too little information. It seemed to be an extravagant hope to fight to the death together. Quick, Huan Lele, let me do it. Long Ting, who had always been lazy and would never stand if she could lie down, seemed to be a completely different person now. Even when she was resting, she could not calm down. Even Huan and Lele's teleportation skill was too slow. Fourth update, seeking monthly votes. Wushan continues. Chapter 1071. As time passed, Tantai Lien, Xia Yuyu, Chen Yan, and the others also became more and more anxious, especially after they could no longer see any cultivators, especially the foreign race cultivators. They became even more impatient. They couldn't imagine how Chen Hao could face the alliance of the 9 galaxies alone. Their only hope was that Chen Hao would slow down a bit, start the battle a bit later, risk his life a bit later, and wait for their arrival. Chen Hao had been away for more than 10,000 years. Before he stepped into the 10-direction territory, they were hunted down endlessly and died one after another. They basically didn't have any hope of seeing Chen Hao again in this life. They missed him day and night and prayed to him in a special way day and night. Now, Chen Hao had returned and entered the 10-direction territory. If they missed the time and couldn't see him for the last time, how regretful would that be? After more than 10,000 years of waiting and praying, they stepped into the same space but were so close yet so far away, they couldn't even explain their deaths. Whether they died in battle or were on the run again, as long as they could see each other again, everything else was not important. Forward. Full speed ahead. In the blink of an eye, they had been flying for a full year. They were getting closer and closer to the core area of the 10-direction territory. They would definitely arrive in 20 days. What they didn't know was that the battle in the depths of the 10-direction territory had ended today. Chi. When they advanced for another 10 days, Hu Mainyang and Helian Wuzi, who were in the lead, suddenly froze and stopped. The foreign tribe cultivators are approaching quickly. Primordial spirit? It may be too late. Let's go in. Helian Wuzi only hesitated for a moment before saying coldly. After that, she suddenly sped up and went into the depths again. Then let's go. Hu Mainyang and the others didn't hesitate. They directly took out their magic weapons and prepared for the upcoming battle. After more than 1,000 years, they had long been used to the scene of a great battle after encountering the aura of foreign tribes. But human tribe. What Helian Wuzi and the others didn't expect was that when the countless foreign race cultivators, who had obviously raised their speed to the limit, were about to meet them, after sensing their existence, they suddenly let out a cry of surprise. One after another, they turned around and quickly fled to the side. What was going on? Everyone was puzzled. For over 1,000 years, when did non-human cultivators ever run away when they saw human cultivators? It would be fine if the other party's aura was too weak, but there were so many of them, and none of them had weak auras. Why would they avoid such a small number of people? More importantly, these people were rushing over quickly. Wasn't it because they had discovered their existence? Something's wrong. Hu Mainyang suddenly said. Endless precepts bloomed around her. Surrounded by celestial light, she suddenly shot out and chased after the foreign cultivator. At the same time, the space between Helian Wuzi's eyebrows suddenly bloomed. Endless chaotic immortal light cut through the void, like a long bridge connecting heaven and earth, and shot towards the foreign race cultivators at a terrifying speed. Ah! Amidst the mournful and terrified screams, the 2 primordial spirits were respectively captured by Hu Mainyang and Helian Wuzi. Don't kill me, I'm just a small fry. In the end, I still have to die. Fine, dying in your hands is better than dying like that. Kill me. One of the 2 primordial spirits begged for mercy, while the other seemed like it was about to be freed. Tell me, why are you running away? Hu Mainyang's eyes suddenly bloomed with dazzling 7-colored light. She stared straight at one of the primordial spirits that she had captured and shouted, Dead, all dead, Countless people have died. God of killing Chen Hao. Devil. When the crowd heard the words of the foreign race cultivator's primordial spirit, they were shocked. Then, their eyes shone with excitement. Just as they were about to interrogate the foreign race cultivator about Chen Hao, a strange fluctuation suddenly came from the void. A crisp, beep sound was transmitted into the crowd's ears. At that moment, all of them jerked their heads up and looked at the sky. They were very familiar with that crisp, beep sound. Unfortunately, they had not heard it since hundreds of years ago. This was because their miniature aircraft had been destroyed by the terrifying Golden Dragon and the 8 great commanders time and time again during their escape. Otherwise, they would not have had such a hard time escaping, but at this moment, they heard the crisp beep that only Chen Hao's aircraft could make. It was as pleasant as heavenly music. Xiaoji pays his respects to the mistresses and brothers and sisters. Swish! The moment the cabin door opened, a shadow condensed into Tiny Tot. He stood in the void and said to the crowd with clasped fists. Everyone stared blankly at Tiny Tot. Their faces were filled with endless shock and joy. They were so excited that they could not speak, as if they could not believe that this was real. Xiaoji was the first miniature aircraft condensed by Chen Hao, the Huaxia No. 1 intelligent brain. More than 10,000 years ago, he, Ito Ta, and the 5 divine beasts resolutely stepped into the depths of the chaotic space to find their master. Now, he had appeared in front of them. They only knew that Chen Hao had stepped into the Shifang territory. But now, what did Xiaoji's appearance mean? It must be that Ito Ta and the others had found Chen Hao. If Xiaoji was here, then Chen Hao must be here too, right? Everyone looked at Xiaoji excitedly. Looking at the open cabin door, they could not help but tear up. Are you still going to hide? Helian Wuzi said to the cabin door, the corner of her mouth twitching. Brother! Chen Yen directly jumped up and rushed to the cabin door. Mistresses, don't be so excited. Master has just finished a great battle and is refining and devouring the million scum. Master doesn't know where you are, so he is waiting for you. He sent Xiaoji out to find you. I didn't expect him to find you so quickly. What? Long Ting suddenly jumped up. She felt that it was a complete waste of her feelings. She was crying, but he did not come. Mistresses, brothers and sisters, come up quickly. I will take you to meet Master, Xiaoji said in a very human voice. It was impossible to tell that it was an intelligent life with a childish voice. Million scum, Xiaoji. What do you mean? Hu Mainyang asked with her eyes wide open. Master has returned from the life and death tribulation after more than 10,000 years. His supernatural powers are unparalleled and he is invincible. He challenged the alliance of the 9 galaxies alone, captured the 9 great commanders alive, and killed millions of scum. If it were not for the fact that the outer scum were too far away and some of them escaped by exploding their bodies and vital spirits, Master would have annihilated them all. In addition, Mistress Xiaoxue is safe and sound. Brother Pan, Sister Ling, and Brother Li are all being treated by Master, Xiaoji said in his childish voice with lofty sentiments and passion. He looked up at the endless void, full of endless worship and reverence. 5th update, seeking monthly votes. Seeking subscriptions. Seeking support? Please, everyone. Chapter 1072. Xiaoji's every sentence and every word shocked everyone. It was as if they were struck by lightning or heavenly music. They were shocked, stunned, and dumbfounded, capturing the 9 great commanders alive? Killing millions of scum? If they hadn't run fast enough, they would have been wiped out? Was that even possible? Any one of these was like a fantasy story to them. They were all things that they had never even thought about before. No one knew the strength of the 9 great commanders better than them, especially the powerful Golden Dragon. His divine ability was many times stronger than a Grand Luo. None of the other 8 great commanders were weak, especially Lu Qianri with the godly king body. He was no weaker than Hu Mainyang, Helian Wuzi, and Chen Shui. However, Xiaoji said that Chen Hao had captured the 9 great commanders alive. What did that mean? That was already exaggerated enough. How could he have killed millions of cultivators? What did it mean to kill millions of cultivators? After all, those who could stay in the 10-direction territory were at least perfected golden immortals. Even if 1,000,000 perfected golden immortals stood there for you to kill, you would still have to kill them until your hands went numb and your energy ran out. Mistresses, brothers and sisters, you don't have to look at Xiaoji like that. Every word he said is true and true. He is conservative and not exaggerating. Look, do you see these two fellows? Do you see the foreign scum who pissed their pants when they saw you? This is the proof. What you see is only in this direction. All around you are scum who pissed their pants and wish their parents had given birth to them with more legs. Not to mention you, even the other small human legions rushing to the core area can scare them away. When Xiaoji saw that everyone was staring at him in disbelief and shock, his expression quickly turned to one of doubt. He immediately continued. Ha. Lan Feng was the first to recover from his stupor and laughed wildly. He laughed so hard that tears streamed down his face, but he still laughed. For more than 1,000 years, he had been on the brink of death. His best brothers and sisters, the main force who had accompanied him through life and death, had fallen one after another. What kind of sorrow was that? What kind of heartache was that? Now he, who was ready to risk his life and follow his brothers and sisters, received such news. He laughed, cried and laughed. Men did not easily shed tears, but at this moment, he forgot everything. In his teary eyes, he seemed to see the scene in the primordial mystic realm, where Big Brother wielded his spear and killed all gods and devils who stood in his way. Everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. Master said that he will use the blood of the foreign races to pay tribute to Xiao Nan, Du Jing, and proud Tian's brothers and sisters in heaven. Come in. Little Ji will bring you to meet Master. When Xiao Ji saw that everyone was crying uncontrollably, he also felt sad. His tender voice sounded like he was about to cry as he spoke. Chi. Soon after, everyone held each other's hands and flew into the aircraft. The cabin door closed, and Xiaoji 1 turned into a streak of light with a swoosh. Xiaoji's how long? After a long while, Lan Feng finally calmed himself down and asked Xiaoji, "What do you think?" Everyone wiped the tears from their faces and looked at Xiaoji. 462 hours, it won't be long. When I came out to find you, I was searching around the core area, so it was a little slow. Half a day. Half a day more. We'll see, Big Brother. Xiaoji, can't you simulate the scene? Let's see Big Brother fight. Everyone was shocked by Xiaoji's words. That's right, Xiao. Hurry up and show us. Long Ting appeared in front of Xiaoji in a flash and grabbed the neck of Xiaoji's virtual shadow. Xiaoji. Okay. Xiaoji hurriedly replied and gave the order. Whoosh! The space in the aircraft suddenly changed and Xiaoji's simulation appeared clearly in front of everyone's eyes. They saw the figure they had not seen in over 10,000 years. They saw his terrifyingly calm face. They saw him forcing the golden dragon out. They saw 2 lines of blood and tears. Xiaonan Du Jing Lin Xia. Ao Tian's brothers and sisters, my fellow humans. Today, I will use an endless amount of blood to pay tribute to your souls. Junior brother Ling, Brother Yang, I hope your primordial spirits are still intact. I will use an endless amount of blood to rebuild your bodies. They heard the voice that shook heaven and earth. It was almost like a prayer. Then, they saw the blood-red hair that was driven into a frenzy, endless slaughter, mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Even though this was only a simulation by Xiaoji, and even though the simulated aura was very weak, everyone could imagine what kind of scene it was. His body had expanded 10,000 times, like a demonic god, killing wave after wave of foreign tribesmen. His body was covered in blood and wounds, and he was getting weaker and weaker. At this time, everyone was on tenterhooks and held their breaths. Even though they knew the result, they still could not imagine how Chen Hao had done it. The scene changed. Chen Hao's huge body suddenly shrank. Then, the truly terrifying and unimaginable scene appeared. Shrill and terrifying screams resounded through heaven and earth. Tentacles that could devour heaven and earth spread wildly in the sky. Golden Dragon, and the other commanders did not even have the strength to fight back. When the scene ended, everyone's eyes were wide open. They were immersed in extreme shock, and the blood in their bones was boiling and surging. Swoosh! A stream of light streaked across the sky, and the aircraft slowly descended from the void. Swoosh! The hatch opened. Swoosh! 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 The figures who were still immersed in shock suddenly came to their senses. Then, they rushed out of the aircraft crazily. One by one, they cried tears of joy in the void, staring at the slender figure with a smile on his face. His eyes were as bright as stars, but they were surging with sparkling light. His slender body was trembling slightly, and he was not as calm as he appeared to be. His gaze stopped on each of them, and he carefully sized them up one by one. The women, Lan Feng, and Ao Tian's remaining brothers and sisters were all emotional. Their faces were full of tears as they stared blankly at Chen Hao. God of slaughter Chen Hao. No one moved or made a sound. Only strong emotions were spreading among them. More than 10,000 years. For them, seeing him again was like waking up from a nightmare. More than 10,000 years. Chen Hao was unable to calm down as he looked at the familiar group of women who should have been beautiful and devastatingly beautiful, yet all of them were haggard and exhausted, and the only remaining brother that Chen Hao was familiar with, Lan Feng. The appearance was born from the heart. With just a glance, he could tell what kind of hardships and dangers his woman and his brothers and sisters had endured until now. Chapter 1073. Brother! What? Chen Yan finally couldn't hold it in any longer and threw herself at Chen Hao. When she dove into Chen Hao's arms like a swallow returning to its nest, she burst into tears. In front of the girls, Chen Yan was the youngest sister. Although everyone knew that she had feelings for Chen Hao, no one rejected her. Although the girls wanted nothing more than to throw themselves into Chen Hao's arms, they maintained their dignity at this time. He didn't belong to any one of them, but to everyone. They couldn't be the first to take advantage of everyone. However, Chen Yan didn't have such scruples, and the girls weren't dissatisfied with her taking the lead. Brother, Xiaonan is dead. She died to save me. Brother. Wow, Chen Hao allowed his sister to vent, but he couldn't comfort her. How could he? His heart was also in pain because Xiaonan's death had caused him to enter a state of madness that would last for hundreds or even thousands of years. Her body and soul were destroyed. Even Chen Hao, who had 3,000 great Daos, couldn't find any way to save her in his current realm. Qi! Suddenly, Chen Hao pointed a finger between Chen Yan's eyebrows. The emotions that had been suppressed for too long finally exploded at this moment. Chen Yan, who was on the verge of a mental breakdown, disappeared in front of everyone. Boss. When Chen Hao looked at Lan Feng again, Lan Feng suppressed the emotions in his heart and yelled. You don't have to say, I know. I'm sorry I came back late. Chen Hao said. Boss. No, it's not that you came back late. It's us who embarrassed you, Qi. Chen Hao shook his head and waved his finger, causing dazzling beams of light to shoot into the foreheads of Lan Feng and Proud Heaven and the dozen or so remaining generals. Have a good sleep. Hiss. Following Chen Hao's words, Lan Feng and the others entered the glabella of Chen Hao like Chen Yan, whom Mainyang's eyes flickered. Mainyang, thank you. Chen Hao looked at Hu Mainyang and said, Thank you? Thank you. Chen Hao's words caused Hu Mainyang, who had just wiped away her tears, to tremble. Was she so unfamiliar to him? She was so unfamiliar with him that she had to thank him as if he was an outsider? Grievance, endless grievance. But she forcibly controlled her emotions. Previously she could cry, but at this time, with her pride, she definitely could not show any weakness. Thank you. What a harsh word. Back then, when she fought with Xiao Yan, the outcome of the battle was uncertain. Who did she side with immediately? More than 10,000 years of waiting, more than 10,000 years of praying, more than 10,000 years of, were they all fake? In the 10 Directions domain, he had gone through life and death with the women and the members of the Proud Heaven sect for over 1,000 years. She could accept the fact that Lan Feng and the others didn't put her on the same side as them. After all, There was no agreement between her and Chen Hao, and it was impossible for there to be an agreement. However, Chen Hao's "thank you" pierced her heart. Hu Meinyang muttered, "Thank you," twice. She tried her best to control her emotions and not show any weakness. However, she could no longer control the pain and grievance in her heart. She didn't want to show any weakness. She didn't want to, but the tears in her eyes gushed out uncontrollably. She stared blankly at Chen Hao, his figure blurred. She realized that the things she always thought she saw clearly, she didn't expect to see clearly in the end. At this moment, Chen Hao pointed his finger again. He pointed at Hu Meinyang's forehead. Unlike Chen Yan and Lan Feng, his finger contained a terrifying amount of emotional power. Furthermore, at the same time, he spoke a sentence in her mind. Before she fainted, she had to keep her eyes wide open, but she would still be able to sleep peacefully. Your ability to control your emotions is too strong. If I want to break you down and completely release you, the only way is to provoke you. More than 10,000 years ago, you acknowledged me as your guardian. Although you didn't tell me, did you? Have a good sleep. How? How can you treat Meinyang like this? Heli and Woozy couldn't help but say. At this moment, the girls couldn't take it anymore. Of course, this was because they didn't hear Chen Hao's voice transmission. Chen Hao shook his head and didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at the nervous Bailey Ningbing and didn't give her any time to prepare herself. He pointed his finger and immediately absorbed it into his mind. Brother Hao, you shouldn't treat them like this. Long Ting directly grabbed the hand that she hadn't held for more than 10,000 years. She frowned and said, although we don't want you to have more women. But Meinyang and Ningbing have been with us for so long. They've long become good sisters. What you did hurt them too much. I'm sorry. Chen Hao suddenly hugged Long Ting and stretched out his arm like a rubber band. He directly hugged Helian Woozy, Tantai Lien, Xia Yuyu, Leng Ninghuan and Leng Ninglu. His gaze fell on their faces and he said, I seem to have a few more women. And what? I have a few children. What? All the women widened their eyes and looked at Chen Hao. Their lips trembled and they didn't know what to say. Chi. It was also at this moment that Chen Hao suddenly pointed his finger a few more times. A crystal light flashed between his eyebrows and absorbed all the women into the world in his mind. All of you sleep? Have a good sleep. Then, together with me, we'll wash the 10 Corners territory with blood. Chen Hao let out a long sigh of relief and then shook his head. He was a little troubled. Hu Meinyang, Helian Woozy, Long Ting and the others' emotions and willpower were very strong. It was easy to make them break down completely under stimulation. Only by making them break down completely could they better fall into a deep sleep. Then, he could do whatever he wanted to refine and transform them. Tension and relaxation were the principles of civil and martial arts. In the past 1,000 years, they had been on the verge of breaking down. If this state continued, even if they could calm down in the future, it would affect their foundation. Therefore, it was necessary to make them fall into a deep sleep. In this aspect, none of them could compare to Coiling Dragon. Especially after seeing Pan Long's performance in the Mountains of Corpses and Seas of Blood, Chen Hao was even more certain that Pan Long's future achievements would be absolutely terrifying. Chen Hao originally thought that Pan Long would need to rest after enduring for half a day in the Mountains of Corpses and Seas of Blood before continuing. But now it had been more than 10 days. Although Pan Long became more and more painful and seemed to be on the verge of breaking down at any time, he still didn't break down. His willpower and endurance had exceeded Chen Hao's expectations. What was more amazing was that Pan Long and Lu Qianrui's physical bodies had reached perfect compatibility in just a short period of 10 days. This was simply a miracle. Second update, seeking monthly votes. Chapter 1074. Seizing another's body was much less compatible than reconstructing the golden body. After all, the reconstructed golden body was formed according to the cultivator's own condition. Although it was impossible to completely match, it was still more suitable than directly seizing another's body. However, Coiling Dragon had casually taken over a god's body. Under the dual tempering of the Immortal Sutra and emotional pressure, it had managed to perfectly match his primordial spirit in just over 10 days. Was it a coincidence that Lu Qianrui's God King body was very suitable for Coiling Dragon, or was Coiling Dragon's appetite so good that nothing was taboo? Chen Hao didn't know. However, this was undoubtedly a situation that Chen Hao was very happy to see. The reaction seems to be very intense, Chen Hao muttered to himself as he thought of the expressions on Heli and Wuzi and the others' faces when they heard that he had a few more women and children. But it really has nothing to do with me, my original body. Indeed, Chen Hao didn't feel anything even now. In the depths of his heart, he didn't even accept being a father. Sorry, he really didn't have the joy of being a father, let alone any feelings. Of course, Chen Hao knew that if he fused with the second anima, everything would be overturned. However, as of this moment, he was truly standing in the position of a bystander, complaining about the injustice of his second anima. Shaking his head, Chen Hao sent out a beam of energy. In an instant, a huge palace appeared around him and he immersed himself in cultivation again. The Dao manifestation immortal fruit tree couldn't completely digest the endless vitality that it had devoured in a short period of time. Of course, this didn't require Chen Hao to complete, but Chen Hao had to participate. Before he left, Zhou Qinglong had given him a life seed that wasn't inferior to the Dao manifestation immortal fruit tree. Even the Dao manifestation immortal fruit tree couldn't devour it. It could only refine its own vitality and constantly approach its aura. Even for Chen Hao, this process was very profound and mysterious, and he could obtain great benefits from it. Chen Hao's goal was to refine the life seed that Zhou Qinglong had given him into his own body. If he could do it, he might obtain a freakish ability like Zhou Qinglong. His physical body could explode for fun, and with his true undying bloodline, how terrifying would he be? Kill. Let's fight. 3 months after Chen Hao and the other human cultivators joined them, those human cultivators, who were much slower than Hu Mainyang and the other human cultivators, finally saw the fleeing non-humankind cultivators from the edges and corners of the core area, who were running away from the core area like streams converging into rivers. Just like Hu Mainyang and the others back then, they didn't know what was going on. As soon as they saw it, they wanted to fight with their lives on the line. It was the last dawn, the last hope. All the human cultivators who rushed over at this moment didn't think about going back alive. However, when they charged forward one by one, they discovered that the foreign race cultivators were like birds startled by the twang of a bow. Many of them, who did not even have a physical body, turned around and fled as if they had seen ghosts. Their auras were not weak, but no one wanted to fight with them. What was going on? They didn't know, and they couldn't figure it out. But seeing the situation, the human cultivators, who were puzzled, suddenly became more eager to fight, and chased after them madly. For so many years, they had been forced to flee like rats. Now, they encountered foreign race cultivators who were afraid to fight with them. No matter what the reason was, they would kill them first. It didn't take long for the human cultivators to figure out what had happened from the outsider cultivators. As they got closer and closer to the core area, the group of human cultivators grew larger and larger. The name of killing God Chen Hao, after the primitive mystic realm, once again became the pride of the human race and the nightmare of the 9 major foreign races. Dawn, the dawn of hope, before the human cultivators fought desperately and had time to show their power, had gradually risen into the sky, cut through the endless darkness, and illuminated the entire 10 directions territory. They came to the core area with a pilgrimage heart and saw a palace condensed with supreme divine powers. Above the palace, 2 words were condensed, blooming with bright light and endless pressure of Tao law, proud heaven. After surviving a disaster, the human cultivators' eyes were filled with joy and tears of excitement. They silently and spontaneously knelt on the ground. Another piece and another piece, they knelt for a long time without getting up. They knelt and wept bitterly, pouring out and venting for their dead Tao companions and brothers and sisters. At some point, the sound of Sanskrit of the great Tao, which contained endless Tao law and immortal light, softly drifted between heaven and earth within a radius of tens of millions of miles around the palace. Countless seven-colored lotus flowers poured down like lotus light rain from the 9 heavens, bathing all the human cultivators in it. Another piece, and another piece, with tears in his eyes, the cultivator closed his eyes and naturally lay down on the ground, peacefully entering the land of dreams. In the dream, she seemed to see the majestic figure of a true immortal descending to save all living things. His handsome face and slender figure seemed to see the souls of countless brothers and sisters who had died in heaven. He waved his hand with a smile and left. The nerves that had been stretched taut for more than 1,000 years, and the essence, chi, and spirit that had been exhausted to the extreme in this day's dream, forgot all the pain and troubles, and slowly recovered, filled up, and improved. The soft Sanskrit of the great Tao gradually became magnificent and vast. Splash, an endless amount of spirit spring water suddenly gushed out. The heaven and earth of the 10th direction territory moved and changed because of it. 100 years passed in the blink of an eye. In the 10th direction territory, with the palace condensed by Chen Hao as the core, the heaven and earth within a radius of tens of millions of miles were full of vitality, and the spiritual spring was torrential. The figures of the human cultivators had already sat cross-legged, and their bodies and minds were calm and peaceful. They were immersed in the magnificent and vast Tao sound, floating in the endless spiritual spring, like newborn babies, without any thoughts, desires, or desires. In a trance, their auras became stronger and stronger. Break and then stand, break out of the cocoon and become a butterfly. In the palace, Chen Hao, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly stopped the chanting of the Sanskrit of the great Tao. A light flashed between his eyebrows, and a graceful and exquisite figure, full of essence, chi, and spirit, and releasing an extremely powerful aura, curled up her smooth and jade-like body and floated in front of Chen Hao. Chen Hao gently took her into his arms. He bent down and stared at her. When he saw her slightly frowning but suddenly hiding her little face in his arms, Chen Hao showed a smile at the corner of his mouth. Then, he gently raised his hand and cupped her beautiful little face. "You're sick and you need to be cured," Chen Hao suddenly said. The moment she opened her eyes, he kissed her seductive red lips. Third update, less than 3 days left, begging for monthly votes. The pursuers are fierce, please. Chapter 1075. Chen Shui, who had fallen into a deep sleep for 100 years, did not know what had happened, nor did she know what the current situation was. She only felt as if she had been reborn. Her physical body, spirit, and soul, in her perception, had all become much, much stronger. The entire heaven and earth, the entire world, in her perception, had become crystal clear. The moment she woke up, she felt that she was embraced by the most familiar smell. Even though she did not open her eyes, she knew that he was staring at her. It had been more than 10,000 years. It felt like a dream. She did not dare to open her eyes, afraid that it was really a dream. She hoped that this feeling would last forever and never disappear again. However, when her little face was held up, when the words, "You're sick, you have to be cured," entered her ears, she had no choice but to open her eyes. It was not a dream, it was all real. Seeing that face quickly approaching, she did not hide, did not close her eyes, and when her delicate lips were embraced, she even more passionately welcomed it. Even though there were many things she wanted to ask and clarify, at this moment, she threw everything to the back of her mind, a long-awaited kiss. Separated for more than 10,000 years, the abandoned lips. How could she let other emotions affect this intoxicating feeling? She, who was completely naked, responded passionately, took the initiative, kissed, hugged, tightly hugged, and wrapped around his body. Tears of happiness flowed out from her wide-open eyes that never closed. Her beautiful face flushed red, her delicate body became hot and pink, and naturally, a tide that was born in a secluded path and died with the feeling of spring. How? Yes. Want me? Yes? Want me? What? Want me? Want me? Want me? To Chen Shui suddenly used strength and tore Chen Hao's Taoist robe. Greetings to the killing god. Greetings to the killing god. Greetings to the killing god. 1, 2, 3, more and more voices, from weak to strong, instantly became a majestic shout that resounded through heaven and earth. Every voice was filled with endless excitement, worship, and reverence. The voices became louder and more people were shouting. Chen Shui, who was tearing apart Chen Hao's Taoist robe, suddenly froze. Her pretty face turned red, and her eyes were filled with resentment as she looked at Chen Hao. Chen Hao hugged her and kissed her hard on the face. He hugged her fiercely and pinched her round buttocks with his big hands. Xiao Shui, it's not my fault. When I let you out, I stopped using my Dao voice. They've all woken up. I missed it too, I missed it even more than you, bah. I don't want to. Chen Shui said shyly with resentment. After she finished speaking, a ray of light flashed between her eyebrows, and she immediately put on her underwear, soft armor, and a blue dress. She turned her face away in a charming manner, raised her chin, and snorted. Chen Hao stared blankly, his heart filled with a strange feeling. Chen Shui, who had finally acted coquettishly, thought that Chen Hao would come to coax her, but there was no movement for a long time. She was so angry that she stomped her feet, but when she turned around, Chen Hao once again held her waist. Greetings to the killing god. Greetings to the killing god. What made Chen Hao and Chen Shui frown was that this greeting, which spoiled the mood, seemed to be deliberately against them, suddenly raised 2 pitches. Is the war over? Where are Xiao Wu and the others? Although Chen Shui did not know what was going on, she already knew the current scene. All the suffering had become a thing of the past, so she did not ask until now. They'll wake up in a few days. They're all here. Chen Hao pointed at his forehead and said, the war ended 100 years ago. I said that when you wake up, I'll pierce through the sky for you. No one can bully my Xiao Shui, my woman, my brothers and sisters. I want them to pay 1,000 times, 10,000 times the price. Next, I'll cut the weeds and eliminate the roots, leaving no survivors. In the 10 Directions territory, except for the human race, everyone will die. The arrogant and cold murderous aura became more and more intense with Chen Hao's words. It made Chen Shui's delicate body tremble, but her heart was filled with warmth. She stared at Chen Hao in a daze, brimming with pride and gratitude. This was her cultivation partner, her man. But Chen Hao suddenly changed the topic, and the murderous aura around him dissipated. He looked at Chen Shui and said, I'm thinking before the war starts, should we fight 1,000 rounds? Pfft. Chen Shui, who was moved by this man who wanted to pierce through the sky for her, suddenly burst out laughing. She pushed Chen Hao away and said, You're not serious, I don't want to think about it. Really? It's none of your business. Forget it, I'm not ready either. We've persevered until now, and we only care about persevering for a while more. We'll wait for you to step into Hongmeng. Let's go, we'll chase them away. As Chen Hao spoke, he took Chen Shui's hand. Endless immortal light and Taoist principles immediately surrounded the two of them. With a buzz, the two of them directly appeared in the void above the palace. Killing God! Killing God! Killing God! In an instant, the human clan cultivators who had been kneeling on the ground burst into cheers that resounded through the heavens and earth. Chen Hao stroked the void with one hand, and the hundreds of thousands of human cultivators felt an irresistible gentle force lift them up. It's been 100 years. Now, instead of worshipping me, you should avenge your dead brothers and sisters and fellow humans. I believe that with your current strength, you'll be able to defeat the defeated foreign tribes. You go first, and Ao Tian's core generals will join you later. We only have one goal, and that is to kill all the foreign tribes in the 10 Directions territory. Kill, 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 kill. Sensing the boundless killing intent from Chen Hao's body, all the human cultivators, who seemed to have been reborn, suddenly burst into loud shouts that resounded through heaven and earth. Their murderous auras condensed into a towering killing intent that dimmed the heavens and the earth. Go, Wash the 10 directions territory with blood. Yes. Wash the 10 directions territory with blood. Wash the 10 directions territory with blood. Chen Hao didn't use his Taoist voice at all, but the remaining hundreds of thousands of human cultivators seemed to be filled with adrenaline. They automatically formed an army around the powerhouses and divided into 10 directions. The battle was monstrous, and they roared the slogan, "Wash the 10 directions territory with blood." After watching everyone leave quickly, Chen Shui looked at Chen Hao in horror and said, How did you do it? Well, their strength has obviously improved a lot. How is that possible? Oh, it has nothing to do with me. I just helped them break and then rebuild with the help of my Taoist voice and spiritual spring. You did the same, and so did Xiao Wu and the others. However, of course, the treatment is many times better than theirs. Chen Hao shrugged and said indifferently, "Fourth update, seeking monthly votes. Just a little bit more Thusen." Chapter 1076. You've changed? It hasn't changed. Chen Shui looked at Chen Hao's puzzled look, and the corners of her mouth revealed a happy smile as she continued. You've changed, but you haven't changed. Chen Shui couldn't pinpoint exactly what had changed. She only felt that Chen Hao was very different from before, but nothing seemed to have changed. The only thing that had changed was his strength. It might not be difficult to help her, Helian Wuzi, Lan Feng, and the others improve, but it was hundreds of thousands of human cultivators, and they were all Daluo Jingxian of the same realm. What kind of strength was needed to do that? Chen Hao didn't seem to care about the Dao sound and the help of the spirit spring. But how amazing was it that one person's Dao sound could affect hundreds of thousands of people at the same time? The spirit spring, the supreme grade spirit spring, and it was a supreme grade spirit spring that was many times better than before. It could supply hundreds of thousands of Daluo Jingxian for 100 years. What kind of wealth was that? But all of this was nothing to Chen Hao. This was the true portrayal of a man attaining the Dao and his chickens and dogs rising to heaven. A man attaining the Dao might not even consider the chickens and dogs around him, but the aura he released inadvertently had an impact on them. To Chen Hao, such an insignificant action could transform hundreds of thousands of human cultivators, allowing them to break out of their cocoons and become butterflies. Not to mention Chen Shui and the other most important women in Chen Hao's life, his brothers and sisters. Tell me, I want to know. The two of them didn't return to the palace, but sat together on the floor. Chen Shui snuggled up to Chen Hao's chest and said softly. She knew that such a feeling, such an opportunity to be alone, was very rare. Even if a cultivator had a long life, such an opportunity was very rare for her. He didn't belong to her alone. She couldn't have him alone. Love was selfish for everyone. No matter how much she wanted it, she could only share it with the other girls. Otherwise, it would only be a headache for Chen Hao. She wouldn't do that. What do you want to know? I want to know everything. The previous battle, the experience of more than 10,000 years, especially who you know. Xiao Shui, are you talking about women? You're not allowed to hide anything. Yes, my dear wife. It's a long story. It's really hard to explain. Many times, I have no choice but to do it. It's hard to talk about it. Xiao Shui, I won't say it, you see for yourself. Chen Hao directly condensed the light of memory and sent it to Chen Shui, who was glaring at him with resentful eyes. Annihilation, Nirvana of True Self, Second Anima, Milky Way Star Field, Extraterrestrial Life, Primal Chaos World, Hongmeng Domain, Milky Way Tunnel, 10 Directions Domain. Chen Shui watched bit by bit, her expression constantly changing, her mood fluctuating along with Chen Hao's experience. Chen Hao kept staring at Chen Shui's expression. He was a little nervous because he didn't hide anything from anyone. Almost all of his experience and state of mind at that time were completely presented to Chen Shui. Although white lies were good, Chen Hao wouldn't do that. From the beginning until now, he basically didn't hide anything from the women. A lie, even if it was white, would be covered up with countless lies. It didn't match his Dao heart, and he would let down the women. Several hours later, Chen Shui opened her eyes and looked at Chen Hao, then gently leaned on Chen Hao's shoulder again. In the future, let's never separate again, okay? Okay. In the future, your 9 lives or 10 lives, except when necessary, will be separated, okay? Okay. Now you, try to give me a little more time, okay? Cough cough. Xiao Shui, once combined, 9 or 10 of me, even if separated, will still be me. There's no difference. Then put a label on 1/9 or 1/10 of you, and put my name on one of them. Give me as much as you can, okay? Chen Hao's forehead was full of black lines, and was full of regret and self-blame. Okay. Chen Shui will always be yours, and only belong to you. I'll be at your beck and call. Oh no, anytime and anywhere, I'll be with you, and never be separated. Chen Hao gently pulled Chen Shui into his arms and said, then don't. If we don't divide evenly, others will have opinions. Chen Shui said, and then burst out laughing and continued, I'm joking with you. In the future, after 9 lives are combined, don't separate anymore. Just take some time, like now, and accompany me. That's enough. Otherwise, if you have 9 or 10 of you and you go around fooling around, there will be even more. Cough cough. Chen Hao was really speechless this time. How could this little brain have such a rich imagination? Xiao Shui, don't worry, I promise in the future that I won't. Sure. Chen Shui stretched out a finger and blocked Chen Hao's lips and said, I don't need your promise. I've seen and understood that many times, just like what you said, I can't help myself. Maybe it's all destined. As long as you have me in your heart, it's fine. I have a very high awareness, and I already had such awareness when I wasn't with you. Xiao Wu, Xiaoyan, they all started earlier than me. But I didn't expect so many. But it seems to be inevitable. In the future, we will never leave you again, even if we stay in the big world in your mind. We have to look after you. I found that every time you leave, there will always be a woman who will automatically come to you and automatically have sex with you. Whether it's kindness or resentment, whether it's hatred or love. It's all the same in the end. Cough cough. Chen Hao was embarrassed, and he felt even more embarrassed. There was nothing to argue and nothing to say. The fact seemed to be like this. Xiao Shui, don't just talk about me. In these 10,000 years, I haven't had time to understand your situation. Show me. Chen Hao asked. You still don't know? I don't know. When I saw you, you were all seriously injured. When I saw Xiao Wu and the others, perhaps because they saw me, their bodies and minds were on the verge of collapse. I simply stimulated them to collapse, and they fell into a deep sleep like you. Our experience is very simple. In addition to cultivation, there is still cultivation, and there is also the development of believers of Aotion. There is nothing else. Details. I want to know all the details. Show me. Chen Hao said. No need, right? Chen Shui said. Do you still have something to hide from me? It's really nothing, it's just some meaningless things. But take a look. Chen Shui spoke helplessly when she saw Chen Hao staring at her, and then a strand of light of memory slowly rose up from between her brows. 5th update, seeking monthly votes. Chapter 1077. Cultivating, praying, developing believers. Cultivating, praying, cultivating. When Chen Hao finished looking at the light of memories that Chen Shui had refined, he did not say anything and only hugged Chen Shui tighter. Simple picture. Just like what Chen Shui had said, she did not have much experience at all. For more than 10,000 years, cultivating and praying had taken up almost all of her and Helian Wuzi's time. Although Chen Shui had deliberately played down the feelings when praying, how could Chen Hao not feel it? More than 10,000 years of waiting, more than 10,000 years of unforgettable yearning. Women were that simple. Perhaps, this was the difference between men and women. Men would love every woman they met, and would occasionally use their lower body to consider problems. But women, the vast majority of them could do it from the beginning to the end. Once someone intruded into her heart, they would become the only one, making her give everything, give all her feelings, and could not tolerate anyone else. Roar. In the world of Chen Hao's mind, in the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood, Coiling Dragon stepped on the mountain of white bones and roared to the sky. Rumble, whoosh. The mountain of bones collapsed, the sea of blood roared, and endless fear and pressure, as if frightened by the terrifying aura on Coiling Dragon's body, retreated far away. At the same time, the immortal scripture Tao marks that Chen Hao had condensed also disappeared in the sea of blood and the mountain of corpses under Coiling Dragon's bright eyes. Senior brother! Senior brother! Coiling Dragon roared excitedly to the sky. Amazing! In the outside world, Chen Hao, who was sitting side by side with Chen Shui and enjoying the faint warmth, felt the aura that suddenly came from the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood, and was slightly surprised. Chen Shui turned her head, raised her beautiful face, and asked, Coiling Dragon, this guy's potential is endless. The divine race's divine king body was used by him, but only temporarily. I didn't expect. You will know when you see it. As Chen Hao spoke, a crystal light flashed between his eyebrows. Boom! Whoosh! A raging and violent aura, along with the crystal light between Chen Hao's eyebrows, suddenly appeared in front of the two. The moment it appeared, an earth-shattering pressure and terrifying blood qi exploded the air, forming gusts of wind. Ah! Coiling Dragon laughed wildly. With a boom, his physical body, true yuan, essence, qi, and soul suddenly soared once more. That aura, that appearance, let alone Chen Shui, even Chen Hao was stunned. This is Lu Qianri's body? Chen Shui asked in disbelief. Sister-in-law, of course. However, this body seems to have been tailor-made for me. Look, the compatibility is perfect. It has completely transformed into my appearance. This is great. If she really looks like Lu Qian, she would be fucking ugly. When Pan Long saw Chen Hao and Chen Shui together, his eyes flashed. After a moment of surprise, he immediately laughed excitedly. Pan Long's words made Chen Hao laugh out loud. Chen Shui also couldn't help laughing. The two of them didn't have any objections to this tall and sturdy body that was like an iron tower. However, if they were to say that it was handsome, it really wasn't on the same level. To be honest, although Lu Qianri was lacking, the appearance of his physical body was definitely much better than Pan Long's current appearance. However, the two of them were naturally more happy to see Pan Long's current appearance. Sister-in-law, I thought that my improvement was fast enough. I didn't expect that. You're not inferior to me, it's not the same. Your improvement was completely through your own tempering. I only had this transformation with the help of your senior brother. Chen Shui said with a rare happy smile on her face. Pan Long's physical body had collapsed and his origin spirit had left. Ever since she met up with Chen Hao, she had fallen into a deep slumber. Now that she was able to see Pan Long come back from the dead, and be even stronger than before, Chen Shui felt joy from the bottom of her heart. Junior brother, I'm thinking, your soul origin. Do you think it has something to do with the divine king physique? Your compatibility is beyond imagination. Chen Hao said thoughtfully while rubbing his chin as he stared at Pan Long, who was as tall as 4 or 5 people. It can't be, right? Senior brother, you can't say that. Your junior brother is 100% pure savage tribe bloodline. When I ascend to the Grand Mist realm, I'll try adding some blood essence to your body or refine it into a new body. You can try again. If it's still 100% compatible with your body, it means that your soul origin is a perverse existence. If that's really the case, I can let you try refining it with my undying bloodline origin. That's great. However, senior brother, there's no need to try. I've taken over the body of a foreign cultivator before. Although he was originally a weakling, my compatibility with him was not good at all even after refining for a long time. Lu Qianri's body was just a coincidence, and it just so happened to suit me. Pan Long said. But you have to try. Although Lu Qianri's physical body is strong and it suits your temperament, the physical body of a god tribe is still limited by the laws of divine abilities. Otherwise, even if you don't have an extreme level physical body, as your cultivation level increases, you will become one. Chen Hao said. That's true. Senior brother, are the sisters-in-law Lan Feng and the others here? Pan Long did not continue with his question. Instead, he asked what he was most concerned about. When he entered the mountain of corpses and sea of blood, he was also cut off from the outside world. They're all here, senior brother. Is there any hope? You have countless laws of divine abilities. Is there any way? Although Pan Long did not want to talk about it, he could not help but ask. Xiao Nen was Qin Hao's younger brother. After so many years of being together, they had a brotherly relationship, and he treated Xiao Nen as his younger brother. Du Jing was also his sworn brother who grew up fighting with him. When he learned that Du Jing had sacrificed himself and turned into countless poisonous bugs, he even wanted to die. Chen Hao's expression darkened and he said, "For now. Oh no. Wait until I reach the Hongming realm, then we'll see." 3,000 great paths and endless divine abilities symbolize the peak of a cultivator's existence. Unfortunately, Chen Hao was still limited by his cultivation level, and he still understood very little. Senior brother, sisters-in-law, then I'll go first. A hint of pain appeared on Pan Long's face, but he quickly suppressed it. Then, his eyes shone with boundless killing intent as he spoke. Go. Chen Hao and Chen Shui did not say much. Naturally, they knew what Pan Long was going to do. How? Accompany them. Accompany each of them alone. I'm going too. Okay, life and death are up to fate. We have to be more open-minded. Chen Shui said softly. Then, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed Chen Hao lightly on the lips. Then, her body slowly dissipated, turning into a gust of wind and flashing away. First update, transitional chapter. Writing very, very slowly. The Dark Mountain continues. Chapter 1078. Bastard. In Chen Hao's mind, in an independent space, Hu Mainyang slowly woke up. The moment she woke up and saw that she was completely naked, she was shocked at first. Then her face flushed red. Her eyes flickered for a while before she clenched her fists and cursed at the void. Whoosh! Immediately, the Tao laws around her surged, and her lithe body, which was faintly flickering with runes, shot up. Breaking and re-establishing, breaking out of the cocoon and becoming a butterfly. I won't thank you, bastard. You said thank you to me in front of so many people. Not only did you embarrass me, but you also transmitted your last sentence to me. What do you want them to think? Hu Mainyang gritted her teeth as she sensed the surging power in her body and the transformation of her soul and state of mind. She was embarrassed. Very embarrassed. She had always thought highly of herself and was as proud as a peacock. It would be strange if she did not take Chen Hao's thank you for treating her as an outsider. Although there was no agreement between them from what he did, in which aspect did he not already regard him as his path protector? Although he had explained it before she fell into a deep sleep, he had transmitted his words. What would Helian Wuzi and the others think of her? It was not strange for such petty thoughts to appear in a woman's mind. In particular, she had already regarded Chen Hao as her guardian. In front of Chen Hao's companions, she could not ignore it. Bastard! Who are you scolding? Ah! Hu Mainyang shrieked. She suddenly covered her breasts and closed her legs. At the same time, countless Tao laws rolled out. Her undergarments, soft armor, and Taoist robes covered her body. Rogue! I can't help it. Since I want to help you temper, I can't wear clothes. Besides, it's not like I haven't seen it before. Chen Hao said with a smile. In his heart, he could not help but admire Hu Mainyang's amazing willpower. According to his estimation, Hu Mainyang, who had just woken up from a deep sleep, would at least be confused for a while like Chen Shui. He did not expect Hu Mainyang to jump up right after he brought her out. She was naked and alive in front of him. This visual conflict was much stronger than when she was in a deep sleep. Boom. Hu Mainyang was already angry. Now that she saw Chen Hao's smile, his indifferent appearance, and his shameless words, she became even angrier. Her aura suddenly surged, and an incomparably resplendent seven-colored light bloomed from between her eyebrows. She punched towards Chen Hao. As expected of an untamed rouge horse. Chen Hao's eyes narrowed. He gently opened his hand and an endless amount of immortal light and rolling Taoist principles annihilated Hu Meinyang's powerful punch. At the same time, he directly grabbed her hand. You, don't be discouraged. Although I haven't stepped into the Hongmeng realm, I'm still considered a Hongmeng. If you have the energy, go kill non-humankind warriors. Bastard, you? Why are you doing this to me? How did I treat you? Fine. Just pretend I didn't say anything. You really think I'm going to follow you? I'm leaving. Hu Meinyang felt Chen Hao's iron-like hand that could not be shaken at all. Her delicate body trembled. After she finished speaking, she abruptly pulled away and shot up into the sky. Bam. However, as soon as she flew out, she crashed into Chen Hao's chest. Her eyes were almost filled with stars. Hu Meinyang immediately realized what was going on. She snorted coldly and turned around to flee in another direction. Bam. However, Chen Hao was like a teleportation wall that blocked her path again. Hu Meinyang gritted her teeth. She tried again and again and again. After dozens of times, tears welled up in her eyes. She glared fiercely at Chen Hao and said, If you don't care about me, why did you keep me? If I don't care about you, why did I keep you? Since when did you care about me? Since when did I not care about you? You just don't. What do I have to do to be considered caring? Like this? Chen Hao, who was standing in front of Hu Meinyang, suddenly moved forward and kissed Hu Meinyang forcefully. Hu Meinyang struggled but could not break free. She suddenly made up her mind and opened her delicate lips, allowing Chen Hao to enter. Then, Chen Hao suddenly screamed and retreated with his tongue sticking out. How dare you bite me, Hu Meinyang? I'll bite you. I'll bite you to death. Come on. Chen Hao stared at Hu Meinyang angrily. Hu Meinyang was not afraid at all. On the contrary, seeing Chen Hao like this, she was very happy to provoke him. After the two of them stared at each other for a few seconds, Chen Hao suddenly laughed and said, This is the true color of a rouge horse. So you like to bite? I like to bite you. I'll bite you to death. You dare to bully me now that you've grown up? Dream on. Actually, I like to be bitten by you too. Chen Hao said. You're crazy. Hu Meinyang could not understand what the eccentric Chen Hao was trying to do. But the look in his eyes was very shameless. Don't stop me. From now on, I have nothing to do with you. I don't want to see you anymore. Hu Meinyang leaped up again, but after flying for a moment, she suddenly stopped. All right, then you can go. Chen Hao did not chase after her. Instead, he shook his head and said, Hu Meinyang was furious. I'll fight you to the death. This time, Hu Meinyang did not leave. She directly pounced on Chen Hao with bared fangs and brandished claws. She did not use her divine ability at all. Anyway, it was useless even if she used it. Since she did not use it, Chen Hao naturally did not use it either. In the end, Hu Meinyang rushed over and pushed Chen Hao down. She pressed on top of him and opened her mouth to bite everywhere. Chen Hao seemed to let out a miserable scream as he struggled with all his might. After Chen Hao resisted a few times, he blocked Hu Meinyang with his mouth and bit her. Chen Hao did not hesitate to attack again. His tongue was still bitten, but this time he did not care at all. He continued. Not only that, but his big hand also wandered around this arrogant rouge horse's body without restraint. After a while, Hu Meinyang's struggling gradually quieted down and fell into a serious kiss. Hu Meinyang knew that she had lost. She had lost completely. Although she had lost a long time ago, at least she did not lose face. But now, she had lost everything. This was obviously Chen Hao's intention, but she still fell into it step by step in the end. Just like how she could not control her grievances and tears before falling into a deep sleep. Meinyang, actually, I really like to bite. Why don't you bite me? When they were very restless, Chen Hao and Hu Meinyang separated from each other and didn't continue. They lay on their backs and didn't look at each other. After calming down for a while, Chen Hao suddenly turned his head and looked at Hu Meinyang. You're crazy. Hu Meinyang glared at Chen Hao and said. However, Chen Hao chuckled and whispered something in Hu Meinyang's ear. Second update, begging for votes. Please everyone, that you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.